regular meeting, and then Mr. Sovereign.
Yes. I'd like to call the Jefferson County Commission back in session, for the special session.
And
Second.
And, Worcester County, I'm gonna call Worcester County officially in session as well.
so we're making everything official. We all be on the record for everything we do, say, and hear. So, okay. Ms. Hardy, do you have a? First off, I'm going to have everybody introduce themselves. I'm going to start over here. Just stand up, state your name and where you're from and what you're elected to.
Definitely. My name is Mike Rhoe, Commissioner-elect for Jefferson County.
Good afternoon, Chris Andrews, delegate-elect 97 state delegate.
Good afternoon, Lisa White, State Delegate-elect, District 96.
Hello everyone, I'm Darrell Coles. I represent Governor Jim Justice in the Eastern 8 counties of West. Bill Clark, I'm with the Warren County Commission.
Hi, I'm Misty Quinlan, I'm Morgan County Administrator.
Sean Forney, County Commission President, Gordon County, just finished up my first term, started my second term.
Dr. Joseph Senna, delegate-elect 91st, South Berkeley.
Delegate Larry Crum, District 94.
Good afternoon, Tom Willis, State Senate-elect for the 15th.
Hello, Delegate Joe Funkhauser, District 98. H.D. Boyd, County Commissioner, Berkeley County.
Steve Catlett, Berkeley County Commissioner.
John Keffa, Jefferson County Commissioner.
Hello, I'm John Hardy, delegate of the 97th and County Commissioner-elect.
Delegate Michael Height, District 92.
Delegate Chuck Hurst, Berkeley County, District 95.
Jason Barrett, Senator from the 16th District, and Senator Rucker asked me to pass along her apologies. She's at a legislative conference in D.C. Otherwise, she would be here. She asked me to pass that along.
Jim Barnhart, Lane Duck, Berkeley County Commission.
What is your President of Berkeley County Commission?
Welcome everybody. I'm in the Berkeley County Commission, and while I do have the floor, I'd like to thank the Commission President Whitaker for our wonderful lunch. Thank you.
Thank you all.
I'm Summer Bear, I'm the Vice President of Access Strategies, and Access Strategies have a contract for walking with the Berkeley County Commission.
Berkeley County Sheriff Rob Blair. Chief Burnett, Sheriff's Office. Chief Young, Sheriff's Office.
Steve Stahl, President, Jefferson County Commission.
Hello, Pasha, Jefferson County Commission.
Good afternoon, Karen Keys, newly elected, Jefferson County Commissioner.
Everybody like to introduce themselves back there? We got a head shake no from our county administrator, but this is a lot of Berkeley County and Jefferson, and we all, again, I'd like to thank everybody for coming today. I've got a short of agenda, but I'm going to kind of turn it over to a couple of my counterparts because it's going to be in their specialty. The first thing I'd like to talk about would be the legislative that will allow a 1% countywide sales tax, and I'm going to turn that over to Commissioner Catlett to kind of give a little bit of a presentation about that. So.
Good afternoon. We really appreciate very much you taking the time to be here today. Also, with those that are the legislation at the state level, we realize very much that usually when you're in that position, you're losing money instead of the pay that you get, the travel that you have, the stress that you have. I can't say enough how we appreciate people like you that are able to serve our great state legislators. Also, I want to say a great welcome to our fellow commissioners, north and east of us, west and east of us, Morgan and Jefferson County. I truly would like to see, other than once a year, we all get together at least a couple times a year, if not more. Because I think that communication thing is really important for the success of all of us here in the county. And I hope that will happen. I've been on the commission for 2 years. And during those 2 years from the beginning, along with Commissioner Goodman, I have attended a monthly meeting in that Board of Education on the school school safety committee. Our sheriff's department is there, Sheriff Blair and his staff, our state police are there, our city police are there, school administrators. We have our 911 staff there, we have our Office of Emergency Services there. We have one of our school resource officers there, and we meet every month. Because of the great work of our grants administrator, Elizabeth Lapchak, this Monday and Tuesday, and Leah is passing out some paperwork to you now, there is the 2024 Eastern West Virginia Safety Summit in Schools and Communities get together in Adams Road and Bethel Church from 8 to 4:30 each day. And they hold about 6 of these in the United States every year. So to be able to host that here in Martinsburg is quite an honor. And if you haven't registered yet for that, then I would ask you to probably consider that and do so. I think it'd be worth the time. There's some nationally acclaimed speakers that are going to be there. But you know what I want to say is this. We could probably meet every week instead of every month. We could probably even meet every day. And the question would still be, is it enough to keep our kids safe in our schools? I have 2 great reasons to do that. Because I have a 13-year-old, my oldest granddaughter in South Middle School who has an SRO. And I have my second child, my 9-year-old, that's at Rosemont without an SRO. And everyone on that committee, when we talk and meet, we can plan to do all we want. But I think every one of us to a T will agree that the greatest thing we could do to ensure a bad situation happening in Berkeley County schools is to have an SRO in every school in Berkeley County. And that's what we're trying to get to, okay? We want to be there at some point. But obviously it's a money issue for the school system and for us. Currently we have all 4 of our county high schools with SROs, 3 from the sheriff's department and the county schools and city of Martinsburg for the Martinsburg High School. Out of our 6 middle schools, we have 4 SROs. 2 of them share 2 schools, go back and forth to 2 schools. But we have over 30-some schools in our county. How do we fund that? We have the answer to that for you today, okay? Don't fall asleep yet. I'm going to keep you awake. I'm going to talk loud and keep you interested. But we have an answer for you, and we're passing that out as well. Over the past 5 years, our fire departments have doubled their costs. Since I've been in office, we've lost 5 people in fire in Berkeley County. Our volunteer fire companies are thanking us for paid firefighters. Our county was fortunate enough to recognize the need years ago, and we have currently 22 paid firefighters to complement volunteers, and it's still not enough. We're getting ready to hire 10 more here in the next few months. But we need probably about 60 plus to do the job right here in Berkeley County. We have 24/7 coverage there in the county. We cannot fight fires for 135,000 people in all volunteers. We need help, and we have the answers to how we can fund it. Okay? Our 911 center is the best in West Virginia. We just voted today to make improvements there to make to try to keep up. But the truth is, years ago, it was self-sustained with the fees, and most of those came from our old landline phones. Well, how many landline phones are left? And the problem with the fees on the cell phones is we don't get all the load like we did on the landline. It gets dispersed everywhere. And anyone with an area code up in 304, we don't get any of it. So over the years now, we're investing more money all the time to complement the budget to keep 911 progressing with the growth that we have. And is there anything more important than the 911 center? Obviously not. But you know what? We got the answer today to fund 911. We have that answer. After I'm finished today, our Honorable Sheriff Bob Blair is going to speak about the demand on his department because he knows it best. I'm going to tell you something right now. These guys need help. I'm talking serious help. And we don't have the funds to do that, but we have the answers for you to give us that funding. You know, we are not asking you as a legislature to increase taxes, okay? All we're asking you to do is provide us with tools so that we, the Berkeley County Commission, can make that decision to add any sales tax. Because I don't know of anything more important as an elected official, I've only been one for 2 years, but I think everyone in this room is elected to say the same thing. What's the top priority we have is what? Public safety. And if that's not your top priority, then you probably shouldn't run for office, okay? And we have some deep concerns with the growth in the past. And what we presented to you all was not a new bill, but there's an existing bill that's been in place for several years now that allows counties to impose a 1% sales tax for road improvements. It's never been used throughout the state. But the state takes care of the roads. So our concern is public safety. Last year, when we were trying to get impact fees for Berkeley County, which we never handled the roads that we had, we didn't create a new bill. We took an existing bill and we tweaked it. And the only thing missing for us was zoning, and by scratching zoning, by July 1st of next year, we're going to be able to charge the impact fees for the first time ever. And that's going to help us a lot. But you can't pay salaries and benefits with impact fees. We need a steady source of income, which the sales tax would provide. And that money, as the population grows, the sales tax will grow with it. So it's a sustained amount of money to take on the higher that you're going to get in the salaries and benefits. And we plead with you to consider making this a priority so that we can make our community here a safe place to live. I don't care whether you're first-time legislature or you've been there, you're a veteran. All we're saying for you to do is give us the ability to make that decision ourselves. And this bill could be tweaked to make that happen. Changing the code would be the simple, most effective way for us to take care of all these needs that I just mentioned. Okay? The city of Martinsburg has 36 firefighters and EMS people for 18,000 people. We have, for 118,000 residents, we have 22 big firefighters. And all we want to do is beg you for your help so we can make our community the safest place in West Virginia. And to make our county residents feel as safe as our city residents do. You know, we do have a couple other options, okay? There's other options. But here's the other option, and we've discussed this. Vote and have the community vote on an excess levy for public safety employees. Would it pass at 60%? I think we would have a chance. But all the burden, if that passes, is on who? The taxpayer. We also have a choice as a commission, and most commissioners wouldn't do this. I personally would, if it comes to that, is to raise the levy rate so that we can bring in more income to do this. It's suicidal for an elected official to do that. But if that's what we have to do, then there again, where does the burden go? Back on the taxpayer. You know, we set up a mortgage account for 3 days at the County Commission Association, all the commissioners around the state. And it's the same thing. You know, Tucker County, a million visitors a year, 6,000 residents, and who's paying for all the services? The 6,000 residents. People coming in are paying zero. Fayette County, same thing. We need your help, and we need it desperately. We don't want to raise property taxes. It would be much cheaper for our residents to pay a 1 penny sales tax than it would be to pay an excess levy tax or if the levy rate went up. And we're asking you to please consider that. If you're anti-tax, we're not asking you to make that decision, please. All we're asking you to do is give us the ability to be able to do it ourselves, and we'll take the heat for it if there is some. But I can tell you right now, the city of Martinsburg is taking in $7.1 million a year with any sales tax. They've had it for years. And I've never heard one person, and I'm involved in this community, complain about that 1 penny sales tax. And they have the ability to do things that we can't do as a commission, and we're taking care of 6 times more people than they are. And it just doesn't make sense. And I hear, well, the legislation's never gonna approve it. Well, you did for the municipalities and the townships, they all have an option. Let the counties have an option. Most of them probably won't do it. But here, we're suffering and getting swallowed by the growth, and we cannot fund these people that need our help properly. So, please consider it. And again, thank you for listening to me. I appreciate you being here, and we'll hope for the best. Thank you.
One thing Steve didn't mention, if you vote on an excess levy, it's gotta be done every 5 years. And the thought that it would not pass again, and you would have all those efforts that you tried to put into place gone, because you wouldn't be able to fund those positions again. Because if the levy didn't pass, you'd be back at square one, even worse. So with that, anybody have any questions about what Steve said or comments?
One of the biggest concerns is property taxes with my elderly constituents. And would this in any way indeed increase their taxes for property or any way impact property taxes? I want to protect my own.
It possibly could. And we've discussed this. We don't know yet how well it will do. We're estimating at least a minimum of $8 million to $10 million a year in the county, all the commercial stuff we have. And of course, the first thing we're going to do is take care of public safety. But if we can get in a position to eliminate some taxes and fees on our residents, we would do that. You know, the big, most controversial fee in Berkeley County is rain taxes, the stormwater fee. There's a possibility. But the first thing we're going to do is address the public safety issue, take care of those needs first. And again, it's not going to raise our seniors' property taxes at all. And most seniors, as far as spending, if they're on fixed income, if they spend their food on groceries, which is non-taxable. So it wouldn't affect that. And it would be the cheapest way that you could provide these services, the easiest way for us to do it, the cheapest way for our residents, our constituents, through this.
And I understand that if you had to do a levy, that could possibly happen.
Oh, it would. If it passes, it definitely would, because it goes to the taxpayer.
That's why I was mentioning, if you have a levy, it does put the burden right back on the taxpayer with the property tax, real or personal. And by 1 cent sales tax, then it's across the board, even with Interstate 81 coming through Berkeley County. People that stop here will be paying that tax.
We estimate again, 30% of the sales tax will be from people out of the county. So the whole burden is not on the residents here in Berkeley County. You're talking 84,000 vehicles a day on 81. By counting visitors, that's just people driving through the stop, spending money here. And, we sit there and listen to the rest of the state, they're pretty strong across the whole rest of the EMS. We have an ambulance fee here, okay? And our ambulance situation with our fees, it just went up again, it's $110 a resident. If you're on homestead exemption, it's only 85, it's still it's pretty hefty fee. But it does, our ambulance authority is self-sustained because of that. Most of the people in the rest of the state, they pay for EMS if they have any money with excess taxes. We had a county there that said they just got theirs passed, it passed by 2 votes. So they're going to go out and hire people. What's going to happen 4 or 5 years from now? When they have to go again, it gets squeezed. And this could help counties like that as well. But at least they would have that option that they choose to do it. And I get the tax, I get that, okay? But actually, we're trying to make it better for our people, not only make it safer, but make it more affordable for them in providing that safety.
That's what Dr. Funk.
Delegate Trump, District 94, calling for Ocean Spring Hills. Couple things. One, I want to strongly second the suggestion made by Commissioner Jackson. I've been making this for years. That I think it's important that the county commissioners meet more often as legislators. I would suggest quarterly. Now, midday meetings are fine for me because I'm retired sexually. But keep in mind, we're citizen legislators. We have to work during the day. So I would suggest
we have done, there's not been a rub. A lot of times, we're sitting there by ourselves too, so, you know, it's a give and take,
I'm
so.
not talking about public. I'm
I
talking
know.
about individual legislators. And in that regard, lost my train of thought there for a second. So the other thing about finances, one of the things I want to look at real strongly as a legislator is the unfunded legislative mandates. And what comes to mind most is the regional jails, which is a tremendous burden on local counties. If the state could take up more of that burden, I think that would make a lot of sense. That's a pet issue. And finally, and I don't want to be the one in this group passing wind in the church picnic, but the legislature recently has reduced taxes for individuals on and off. I think we need to do more. I have a near neighbor, a grandmother. There was 5 single woman who was raising 5 grandsons, one of which is developmentally disabled. She has to make a decision every winter between feeding and eating. She's really hurt. As a legislator, and I understand the financial needs that the counties have, I absolutely will not vote for authorization of any increase of any taxes. Period, end of sentence.
John?
Yeah, so, I feel like I have a little bit of insight on this as being a legislator for the past 6 years and now going to be a county commissioner. And I've been walking this fence and walking this line on this tax for some time. And I, you know, in the legislature, I didn't really support it. I've given myself some wiggle room, as a commissioner. But the three things that you need to remember about this tax, if this tax is implemented, or if the legislature gives the county commissions or county councils the ability to implement it. We're not asking the legislature to be able to implement this yourself. Just give the county commissions or county councils the ability to vote this for themselves. So the 3 things that you need to remember is you will pick up on the cash economy. There's a huge cash economy out there that people don't realize. You pick up on the pass-through economy, which is huge for us, and you also give the taxpayer a little bit of ability to tax themselves. If I go to dinner and I want a cheeseburger, somebody else may want filet mignon. So you kind of do give a little bit of ability for the person to tax themselves. I would like to keep that in mind. Also someone touched on the homestead exemption. I know that Delegate Hump has worked on this legislation year after year after year. I introduced some legislation last year that I hope someone picks up and runs with that would give our seniors a little bit more help on the lower end to get a little bit better tax return. And the legislation is pretty daunting, but it's something else that we could do. But I think that in Berkeley County, we're very, very concerned, and Jefferson County too, probably working very concerned about our senior population, the people that have been here, the people that have built this community, you know, that are living on fixed incomes in a home that's been paid for 20 or 25 years, that they're getting caught up in the switches with our fire fees, our ambulance fees, and some of the other fees that we're putting on. So I think it's really, I don't know if it probably takes a constitutional amendment to do this. Am I correct with that, the homestead exemption?
Yeah, just to jump in with that real quickly. The Constitution, I think still it's in the Constitution. But the Constitution says not more than 20,000 per tax credit. And that's been there since the late 70s.
Yeah, I think
My amendment is simple, just said may not be more than 20,000, which gives the legislature the authority to increase.
Yeah, I mean, that would be a good route to go, and if we could do it in a tiered system where at a certain age, you got 20,000, as you got older, that grew because we have these home values that are skyrocketing, and our seniors are getting caught up in that with their real property taxes. So I think the homestead exemption is something that really needs a serious look at. Myself and Daryl Coles worked on that legislation last year that would help some of our seniors that are in the really low income brackets to be able to get a little bit of extra tax dollars back. And then just talking about the 1% sales tax, just giving you those 3 examples of how that tax could be affected, and we could get a return on that, and not asking the legislature to impose that, but give the county commissions the ability to impose that themselves. Thank you.
Before I forget, we have Melanie Polario that's on conference call with us today. She's one of the people that, are the County Commissioners Association of West Virginia. So she's, you know, with us, listening to everything that we say to help make things maybe go smoother through the legislature or the Senate. But anyway, just want to recognize her. I forgot to do that earlier in the conversations. But I think Senator Barrett has.
Let me say something else, Jim.
Sure.
Melanie and her staff, the CCA County Commission Association, works very closely with Summer and her access strategies to work together to try to get bills that we need passed. And we appreciate that greatly, that they both work together so well.
Thanks, Jim. Steve, I've been trying to read through this a little bit as I've also been listening. The implementation of this, as I understand it, requires a vote of voters to do that?
It does, we would rather not, but if it does.
But the bill as it's drafted says that, right?
It does, yes.
Okay. But the county commissioners, if they see appropriate in the future to reduce or eliminate, doesn't have to go back to referendum. You have the ability to unring the bell, but, we talked about seniors and we talked about, or I've heard talk about seniors and people on fixed income and their ability to pay some fees, their ability to pay additional taxes. As I read this bill, there seems to be provisions in here that talks about what certain things are not subject to consumer sales tax. So, and I think Anthony was here. If this is implemented, the things like food and water bills and electric utility bills, kind of necessities that seniors, health insurance, the things that seniors pay for, are not going to be subject to this 1% sales tax. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. So I mean, we get followed up in a lot of talking about how this can affect people on fixed income, but those are the folks, obviously we're all concerned about it and we always want to put it at the forefront of looking after, but these are folks that don't have a lot of discretionary income and don't buy things that are subject to consumer sales tax. But to Delegate Commissioner Hardy's point, that if the fire fees are, if other fees are increased, that's going to hit these seniors, is that correct? And at the end of the day,
Or if we increase taxes with an excess levy, we're just raising tax rates.
and so if you don't get a mechanism like this, where the voters get to decide if they want it, then you're going to hit them with other fee or tax increases anyway.
We have no choice.
Thanks. Chris?
I think you guys know what I'm gonna say about this. I knocked the one about 6,000 doors back in the day. I talked to the voters. They're all struggling. This economy is hard. The inflation that they're facing is incredible. And they can't just simply vote themselves more money. They sit down, they tighten their belt, and they do the best they can to survive. So I absolutely, and I swore to them, that I not only would oppose any new taxes, but would work to eliminate taxes like the rental tax that was just discussed earlier. And I will stick to my word, I will not support any mechanism or effort to enable anyone to increase taxes on people.
Hey, I'll make a real quick comment after that. That all sounds good, but the problem is, if you have to put a fee out, like you guys have an ambulance fee that you had raised recently, we have an ambulance fee, that doesn't get voted on by people. We can do that without voting. So it sounds like they would rather us put a fee on them that they have no choice in than to consider 1%.
I know when I first got elected, there was promises that were made and promises that you can't make, and I understand. Delegate Trump, Chris, I wholeheartedly believe in everything that you say. But that's kind of a narrow vision you're taking when it comes to the broad spectrum of Berkeley County. And I'm speaking for Berkeley County, I'm not Jefferson or Morgan. But that's a narrow path you're taking, just, you know, for a few constituents that feel that way. I mean, I'm knocking on a bunch of doors myself. But, you know, the promises that I made was to try to make Berkeley better. And that's where I'm at with that. But I think we kind of beat that horse pretty good. I think everybody understands what we're trying to do here, you know, to help you all in Charleston, to make things better for Berkeley County, or even the whole state of West Virginia. We would just like to have the opportunity to do these things, and it comes under you all to have us do it.
What price do you pay to keep our community safe?
That's all we say.
I've heard this.
Whether it's more firefighters, more police officers, more EMS, whatever, better 911 service, what is going to make our community more safe? SORs in our schools would be a great thing instead of another one. I would love to have an SRO at my 9-year-old in school too. I feel much better about it.
Well, and I think what, Delegate Leckner says is admirable, but you're also saying that same realm that with this particular piece of legislation, you know better than the voter. And if this is it requires the approval of the voters, then they get to decide if they want to pay 1 cent on the dollar to support fire and EMS and school resource officers and whatever else is included in that public safety funding. You as a delegate are simply saying to the voters, this bill requires that you get to have your voice heard and you get to say whether you as a county want to pay that or not. And it has to be on a general election ballot. It can't be on some special Saturday in the dark ballot. And they get to decide whether they want those funds to pay for that. And I think that's a far better way to do it than even saying that the county commission can impose a new fee or tax. I think placing it on the ballot and allowing the voters to decide whether they want to fund those things is really important.
I think giving us the consideration of us that have been elected here for a while to sit in these seats that we sit in, that we hear the concerns of the citizens and the other elected officials. That's all we're asking for, is the consideration.
Let me ask you a question on this is just for my personal application. Can someone explain what the revenue projections are for the impact fees? And I understand the impact fees statutorily are not allowed to be used for fire or police, but is it possible that they can alleviate the budget in some areas so other funds can be allocated to fire and police? And I don't know the answer.
Well, we're in that discussion right now with a group that is actually putting together a sort of a funding mechanism and how they would be collected and how they would be dispersed. It is another tool in the box, but it's not the complete answer.
Jefferson County, they should speak on that.
That's what I was gonna say. It's funny, we just had a meeting this morning, and as of June 1st, our impact fees are changing. Over the course of a couple of years, our school attendance, our enrollment has went down. We took that fee to $1, we reevaluated it this year, and now we're re-implementing the school fee. What was the current fee, 1,800 for a single family? And now it's running up to, I'm probably not be rounding up a little bit, to $9,800. It's not going to be implemented until June 1st of 2025. You cannot use the impact fee for salaries, for emergency services. So I'm trying to give you a broad spectrum of how this works. If we have in our county 10 ambulances, and we need a replacement, we can't use that impact fee money to replace one. If we now decide we need the 11th ambulance, impact fee money can be used to pay for that. So to give you an idea, it's not a way to create revenues if we can only use for growth, ways to grow and things we need to grow.
Commissioner, the one thing I would add is if you're moving from 10 to 11 just to increase your service for your current residents, you can't use that for your impact fee. It has to provide additional, it has to be for service for growth, not to provide better service for what you have. So as you're looking at trying to provide service for your current residents, impact fee is only for the growth that you have.
Now, I'm not correct in saying that when that impact fee is collected, that it's collected from a certain area, can only be used in that certain area, or is it countywide?
It's countywide.
It's countywide. So, northern Berkeley impact fees collected to be used for impact and growth in South Berkeley County.
Anywhere.
Okay.
And if you, and we were also advised, so you know, with our school enrollment, people watch live on our enrollment. If that starts to decline, you may have to readjust it because you do not spend these fees on what you're supposed to spend them on in 7 years. You're supposed to give it back to whoever paid it. That's an accounting nightmare. I can assure you that.
Any other questions before we move on? Comments?
The
Yeah, I think just, I serve on all the public safety boards in Morgan County, and the constant thing we hear from our fire departments in particular, with the town of Paw Paw, town of Bath, Berkeley Springs, they're required by state code to provide fire service. South Morgan Fire Department, Great King, they're not required, so they don't, we're required by county to provide EMS service. We have our ambulance fee to pay for that, and so a few points there. One would be looking at requiring the rural fire departments to be required in state code. Apparently, the way I understand it, you call 911, you have to come provide EMS services when you can let your house burn down if you're outside of the town of Bath or the town of Paw Paw. Two would be to look at memorializing the OEMS salary enhancement fund. So in Morgan County, even with an increased fire fee, an ambulance 20 years ago might have been $150,000. An ambulance today, even with the replaceable box, is looking at $700,000, not including to equip that ambulance. We're very fortunate. We have a great outside contractor, Company 7, to provide those services. But with everybody increasing their wages, it's hard for Morgan County to keep up. We struggle on the sheriff's department, we struggle with Company 7. The salary enhancement fund last year was great, but we can't give it to them as a raise because it's not there permanently. So my request of the legislature would be to look at memorializing that in perpetuity, because counties like Morgan and I know Berkeley, Jefferson, larger scale, we all have the same problems, and that's a very, very big problem. We're struggling to make sure we can stay competitive with Frederick County, Loudoun County, Washington County, Allegheny County. We still have some leaps and bounds. So those are just two things for going to be certain on public safety to keep in mind.
Okay, we're gonna move on. I'm gonna turn the floor over to Sheriff Blair, and he's got a few comments he's going to make also. Sheriff?
Thank you, Mr. President. Appreciate everyone coming today. This is a very important meeting for my staff. Public safety, like Commissioner Matt said, is one of the most important things we can do. I'm glad you started off with the SSOs, SROs, different terminology for them, because that was something very important to me in my campaign, that I see the need for that in every school. The fact that we don't have someone in every school is criminal. Things we spend money on in state government, there should be an SSO in every school. I've been working on some legislation. Hopefully I'll be able to work this summer on this to draft a good bill that gives these SSOs some actual teeth of what they can and cannot do. I'll commend Berkeley County Schools for taking the lead in this. They have an SSO coordinator, Dean Olag, and he's hired on some retired police officers for that. And I'm not exactly sure where that funding comes from, but the school board has hired these people to serve in that capacity. Of course, we have SRAs, deputies in the high schools in the county, and they work hand in hand with them. But we need a good bill in the legislature. I'm willing to work with all you guys to get that bill drafted up to where it gives them actual encode what they can and cannot do. Now there is like security, they actually need some legislation to help them in that area. But I'm glad you started out with school safety, because that is one of the most important things to me. Because I have baby children. All three of my children grew up in the Berkeley County school system, great school system, and we didn't really think about that years ago about the school safety stuff. We've seen what's happened in the last several years with the school shootings and whatnot, and we're lying to ourselves if we say that's not going to happen again. It's going to happen again, and we need to be prepared to combat that. At least and we need to have one in every school. There's a lot of stress on our agency. Last week, what, 3 different complaints, 3 different threats in the schools? We had, I think it's 3, it took me just 2. 3, and here's the thing, are they credible threats, or are they just hoaxes like most of them are? We can't, as an agency, as a police officer, we can't say, oh, that's just a hoax, we're not going to respond to it. It takes resources. We have to expend resources every time. And that takes away from our patrol. they have to respond to these things. Our patrol unit is stretched thin right now. We're funded, for 68 deputies right now in Berkeley County. We're at 62. We're in a hiring process, hopefully getting ready to hire one, and we'll go right back into another one. It is very difficult in today's climate to hire police officers. And I think we can probably figure out why. We could pull 5, 6 years to defund the police, and no one wants to be a police officer right now. I'd say no one. It's a difficult job to recruit people into. We're working on a better recruiting plan with that. But we are woefully understaffed in Berkeley County. We're the second largest county in the state. 135,000, that's roundabout. So in order for, we need right now 135 deputies to meet a minimum ratio of what they say is per citizen, per officer. So we are way behind the 8 ball. And I'll mention this, was I met with Berkeley decades ago, probably, at least 15 years ago when I was with the state police. When I was with the state police, the troop commander of the 7 counties, Berkeley County was my busiest county. It's still the busiest county, obviously. I'll work my tail off with the people in South Charleston to get our manpower in Berkeley County up to 35 troopers, 5 supervisors and 30 troopers. When I left in 2013, that was our staffing numbers. Anyone want to take a guess what the state police is staffed at now in Berkeley County? It's under 20. So 2013, well, we grow about 4,000 or 5,000 in the county every year.
3,000 a year right now.
How many?
3,000 people
Okay,
a year.
3,000, whatever. So we've grown, and the state police has gone backwards. So the stress comes on the sheriff's office. Here we are, everything gets pushed to the sheriff's office. And I'll say this about our county commissioners, they have been absolutely wonderful working with me. They've given me just about everything I've asked for. And I understand limitations that they have, but again, this is a no-brainer to me. And I don't like paying. Here I am, the chief tax collector in the county. I don't like paying taxes. I don't think anyone does. So, but this is an option that I think you can give people. They can vote it in or they can vote it out. But the same citizen that's struggling with the bills and stuff is going to be the same citizen that picks up the phone and wants the deputy to respond to her house like that. We're stretched. And it may be delayed because of that. One of the things this will help do is a north and south substation for us. Right now, we're centrally located. I'm going to turn around here where we're at. That way, yeah. It's a great location with the court systems, but we have vision of a north and south satellite office, which would enhance our response times in Berkeley County. Getting out of town now is tough with the traffic congestion. I think we're on our way to the north satellite office. It's hopefully here in the near future we can get that done. But again, with currently we have 62 deputies. We're funded for 68. We're doing our best to get up to the maximum, and then I'm going to request more manpower as that goes. But we have to grow our agency, and I think this is a really good way for us to do that. One other thing people don't realize we also deal with is a mental health crisis in this area. Our deputies, and it's just about every week, will be tied up with a mental health hygiene, sometimes 24 hours. And the only thing we have is a holding cell at our office to put these people in. That is wrong. I mean, that's wrong. These people are in mental health crisis. They need to be treated with dignity. There needs to be a mental health facility in the Eastern Panhandle. I'm maybe going off topic on this, but that's, thank God for Mike Lang and his transportation team, because when we get a mental health person, we hold them for 24 hours, then they got to drive them from here to Huntington and back. That's a big cost.
For a 15-minute interview.
For a 15-minute interview. I don't think the average citizen understands that. It happens every week, sometimes 3 or 4 times, right? Okay. But we do the best we can with the resources we have to take care of these people. And again, this would be a tool to allow the citizens, if they want better, responsive law enforcement, fire, EMS, and they see this as a way to allow them to vote for it. I can't stress that enough. Our opioid epidemic in the area, that stretches us out, that ties into the mental health issues that we have here in the area. Our guys do the best they can. And I'm sure I can speak for Sheriff Hansen and Sheriff Moore on the same level. They deal with the same type things. So law enforcement, it's something that I was born into. I love law enforcement, but we need some extra funding to get some better resources. And again, this is, our county commissioners have done a great job helping us in the situation we're in now. But we have to grow this agency. We have to grow the sheriff's office because we're way undermanned right now. Be glad to answer any questions anybody has.
Yeah, just to address the mental hygiene hearings, I mean, any of the legislators that have been here, the new ones, it's lunacy. It is absolute lunacy that we are using, we're not using our deputies. The county has a transport system that they're using some of the court marshals for, but they're putting these people in a cruiser and they're driving 5 hours to Sharp or Ruby for a 10 or 15 minute hearing and then driving 5 hours back. There is absolutely no reason with today's technology that we need to do this, or why not, if we don't have a facility here in West Virginia that's close, why can we not use a facility in Maryland or one in Virginia? There's one in Hagerstown, there's one in Winchester. I mean, it's absolute lunacy that Berkeley County taxpayers are paying to transport someone for 10 hours for a 10 or 15 minute hearing. And oh, by the way, sometimes they get there for a hearing and there's no one to provide the hearing. So they may do it twice. So I beg the legislators to try to figure out somehow to make that better. I mean, I know there's big strides in DHHR and in our mental health. We've tried to skinny up and tighten up that organization. And if there's something that can be done with that, why can't we find a certified organization that's in Washington County or is in Frederick County and Winchester? That's my plea on that.
About 911, right now, you're taking 2 out of the first 3 calls to 911, so in this case, the third. We're talking about, we're gonna take the 4th. A couple of years from now, they're probably gonna say, we're not gonna take any. I think what pressure that's gonna put on this department when that happens.
And honestly, with 911, we take the majority of the calls. It's, even at that ratio, they're just not available. They're not available. And of course, if they're not available, it's gonna fall on us. We're gonna do what we have to do to get the job done. It certainly stresses us out to the point that, we put stress on our deputies.
Delegate? Yes, sir.
I want to speak a few words in support of what the sheriff and others have said. I remember when we had our first conversation, it was 2010.
Similar issues.
This is one of the things that state government can do, and state police come under the purview of the governor. And I have had a conversation with Governor-elect Morrissey about this situation because, quite frankly, Eastern Panhandle, particularly Berkeley County, is undermanned as regarding state police. And when they're undermanned, that puts more pressure on the county, and it's getting worse, not better. So this is an issue that I believe should and needs to be taken care of right away. The other issue about the mental health hearings, I've been involved in that previously, other careers with corrections and what have you. There's ways to do that, and I think the legislature takes for this because this is a tremendous waste of man hours and taxpayers' money. And these are 2 issues I think that can be done that would help alleviate some of the stress in this situation.
Sure. Delegate Wayne Clark, sorry for arriving late at a previous engagement today. So, I've sat on the education committee for 4 years. We've passed every year out of the education committee something in regards to SROs, SSOs, And we always seem to get into the same bottleneck, and that is funding. The question is, are we putting this in the wrong spot by putting it on the Department of Education? Or should we, or should we be putting it towards, I don't know, state police, municipal police? Very difficult for us to put something out that requires municipal police departments or sheriff departments to do something because they're not necessarily under our direct supervision. But what are some options in regards to funding to SROs that you have seen work in other states or anything?
I think, to have us, come under the sheriff's office to hire enough deputies to fulfill that obligation, we make it impossible to do the civil service hiring.
Right.
And I mean, I'm going to use the word struggling to hire at 68 right now, but it's hard enough to get up to our manpower number. I think there needs to be a mechanism somehow to where, I think the best option is to look at retired police officers, people that have, so to speak, been in the fire and react.
There was a bill that we passed last year
Yes.
about education that allowed for retired veterans, retired police officers, who already have the training. But again, we ran into the funding issue. And I can't remember exactly what the fiscal number on that was. You know, Mr. Hardy may have a little bit better understanding from that, but I don't.
Billy, let's just leave out this.
Yes.
Because we're not asking the state for a single penny. We don't want your money, just give us the ability to generate the money right here in Berkeley County, so we can take care of our own needs. And that's all we're asking.
Solution right
You
here.
don't have to put a penny up towards this.
Okay. Thought of that.
But it, again, with the schools, being like running that program, he has a lot of experience in hiring, here in Berkeley County, retired police officers. We're actually getting them into the schools, but there needs to be a comprehensive bill that defines what an SSO can do, in their proper authority, like detention, and also their, ongoing training, the firearms training, the use of force training, that's something that we'd be willing to do, to work with it, because we're gonna be the ones getting called to the scene if something bad happens, so it makes sense that we'd be the ones we have competent people to train with and work cooperatively with, so.
And to respond to the 1% sales tax, if we're gonna put a bill out, it's gonna be a statewide bill for all 55 counties. Not all 55 counties have the ability to do the 1% sales tax. So the answer there is.
Their option.
Yeah, you know, I mean, you know, for us to put a bill out, we have to put it out for all 55 counties. We can't do, you know, pick and choose counties.
But it's optional, like every city, every town in West Virginia has the option to impose 1% sales tax. That's their option.
Okay.
And the SRO bill last year that was working in House Finance was a tertiary bill that had funding coming from the state, funding coming from local county commissions, and funding coming from boards of education. And that's the bill that was worked last year in House Finance that did not make it across the finish line, but I think there's still some work involved in that. But as Commissioner Catlin said, Berkeley County Commission is not asking for that, they're asking for the 1% sales for a public, and I misspoke. I thought it was something that the county commission wanted to vote, but they're just asking for a public referendum. They're asking for the county, if you want services, then vote for services.
If you were able to sell a 1% sales tax at a referendum, you probably should get it. I mean, I know our county, we ran 3, back in the day, we ran 3, levies just to run our government. 60% vote, and we went out to aggregating in the county and sold it to them, and we won it 3 times. So it's possible, there's 3 years, that's not the answer. The sales tax idea, 1% sales tax, just how it affects the people.
If you use excess levy, it's going to cost us.
Yeah, it was
more money.
Yeah, it was absolutely it's a tough play. In 3 years out, you're done.
Plus,
where it's at now.
I don't know if we're right on this, but excess levy obviously takes 60% of the vote. But if this referendum goes on for this, the simple majority, I believe, because
what I understand. Is that right? That's the way I understand it.
I don't know if this is a question for you, Robert, or not, maybe for the county commissioner. Y'all can talk a little bit about what your revenue sources are and help us understand those. Because I would think with growth, that's why you need more revenue, but also with growth, you should have increased revenue. So what's the lag behind in what you need and what you're getting, and how long does it take for that to catch up?
It's on the agenda too, the rollback. We grow, then we get penalized for growing.
And you go 70% of that. We step forward, you knock it back.
Rollback's killing us.
Well, and I think the rollback needs some explanation, because I can tell you, I was in legislature for 6 years and vice chair of House Finance, and I don't understand it.
Nobody does. It was put in 1990 for the emergency. It's equity, and it needs to go.
And one thing to pick up off the sheriff, not all counties obviously are the same, but we only have one municipality. Whereas Jefferson, you've got Charlestown, you've got Branson, Harpers Ferry, Bolivar, Jefferson. So you've got those other agencies that we don't have, and that's to your advantage. We don't have that. The city of Martinsburg is our own municipality. In Charleston, for example, with 160,000 people, you take Charleston, South Charleston, Dunbar, Nitro, St. Albans, that only leaves Kanawha County government to take care of 56,000 people. I mean, that's the God's truth. So we're trying to take care and manage 118,000 people that live here every day. That doesn't include the people that come here to work. That doesn't include the people, 84,000 cars up and down the interstate. So our services are being stretched. And they're to the point that when these guys go out, and for you, those of you who do not know me, I'm a fireman. That's what I've been all my life. It's not safe out here to be doing this type of job with one or two guys handling a situation. It's the same way on a fire truck. It's Russian roulette is what we're doing. And our deputies, our firemen, our paramedics deserve better. All we're asking for is to give us the opportunity to take care of the people that we represent. We're not asking you to make that decision to raise that tax. Let us do the hard work. We'll do the salesmanship and put the thing back out to the voters. They're the ones at the end of the day are going to reap the benefit, or they're going to suffer because we can't provide those services. It's that simple.
Yes, Sheriff, Blair, as a possession, I did part of a training at St. Elizabeth's mental hospital, and I also got drugs and mental health. And my thoughts are the majority are probably drug or mental health related. Correct. So I see mental health issues with the biological. That's a topic. I see drug abuse as self-medication for the biological factors. And so I'd like to somehow work with the WVU or Valley Health to put in a mental health facility here. And I don't know if the county will be able to work with them, but I see that's desperately needed. I think it would also decrease your drug-related calls, which would be pretty dangerous.
Come on, our mental health facility here in Eastern Man. I mean,
I see that need. Just walk down 2 blocks. So that's something we need desperately to do. I don't know if passing this will help with that. But I need to talk to leadership of both institutions, WVU and probably how frequently it's the fashion. And I would like to engage with them. They can get, I think in most cases where there are mental health facilities, there is some government role also. Sometimes that's helpful to individuals.
I'll give you an example of what you're speaking of. My friend in California Sheriff in Calvin County, Chuck Zirkle, talked to him about this issue, and they have the facility right there in Huntington. They grab someone up, have their hearing, 30 minutes later, they're done. We're 24 hours, and I just told this one recently, over 30 hours of holding someone. That's unacceptable.
I also think, the Suffolk schools have a lot of students that have some mental health issues, and when they have to send them out of state, they think it costs the schools a lot of money. I know I was talking to the finance guy, and they had to pay $500,000 just to take care of one student. Have to send them to the state, and not, that destroy any budget. So that's what I'm talking.
I have a question for one of the commissioners, perhaps.
Thank you, Rhoe.
Thank you.
How much revenue do we not receive due to pilot programs? How do pilot programs play into the revenue mix? And I understand, I don't really complain, but I understand that, we use them to attract businesses here. But the offset there, I mean, like when you attract a business with a pilot program, generally, how much revenue is that you don't see because of the pilot program?
Yeah, Chuck, honestly, I can't answer that. I will say that a lot of those pilot programs are already done in Charleston from you all.
Okay, yeah, I know the state is involved as well.
Oh, yeah.
I'm talking about locally as far as the county and the pilot agreements that the county set in place.
Yeah, I mean, there's an offset there. I don't know, because they're all going to be different, for one thing. One thing that we did do is we've shrank all of our pilots down. Traditionally, we're 7 year on a pilot, whereas way back when, there were multiple years.
And I don't mean that in a bad way, but, it's part of the equation, I guess, to some degree. And I also understand that in this area here, we're competing with states that have much higher tax rates. And
Yeah, so when you
even to attract those businesses, we're competing with other states that have much higher tax rates. That makes it easier for them to compete with offering pilot programs. I understand that. I know like CMC Metals, that they were probably destined for Pennsylvania. It was real close as I understand it.
Yeah, I hate it because I'm not a numbers guy, and they're all going to be different because they all have a different amount of money that is involved. But
There's
one
like a
thing that
different gas.
one thing that we've tried to be able to do is expand our tax base, create good jobs, so that people don't have to leave here. They can stay here and work. It's right here.
And I
And
understand.
that money is put right back into our economy. So
And that makes it really hard to measure
the matrix of it.
yeah, it makes it hard to measure how profitable or non-profitable or whatever often those programs would be.
But what Eddie said was those deals are usually already struck, so like SBA, economic development, whoever is involved in all those discussions usually strike that deal, and just come to the county commission and say, will you accept this?
Oh, okay, I thought that was done, I always thought that was done separately with the county. Okay, I did not understand that.
That information is the tax department passes around every year. We use big forms to do that, that's market. Ours is zero. We take one down.
Can I have one more thing? Sure. Looking at my notes. One thing else this would afford us, if funding was available and we increased our manpower. Every day, we get complaints about I-81 on traffic, people driving. I drive myself, tell my daughter, my wife, just take it back for it. It's that bad. I don't have the manpower to dedicate 24/7. I'd like that. I'd like to get a manpower up where I can have an interstate patrol. Well, the state police sure we can't do it. So this would be another way to fund that. CID, they do a great job. I want to add manpower to that. Eastern Panhandle Drug and Violent Crimes Task Force, I have a deputy assigned to that. I like to have 2, 3, 4 deputies assigned to that. I don't think anyone in this room fully understands how important that task force is in this area. University of Baltimore, Washington DC, Philadelphia. That task force keeps this place livable, along with our patrol units and stuff responding to calls. So this is a no-brainer, folks. Give the citizens an opportunity to vote and let their voice be heard. They want better, more responsible law enforcement and public safety. They're gonna vote. If they don't, and I mean, to me, I don't see where it's even a question. I think we're overtaxed, especially on the federal level, paying for stuff that I don't even believe in. But hopefully that changes. But this is, to me, that's my 2 cents. So thank you.
Thank you. Opportunity for Jefferson, Morgan County, want to make any comments on anything?
I'd just like to say that I thought our sheriff was in the room when you were up there talking. We hear the same thing. So I feel like Sheriff Hanson was right here. We have the same problems. What's different a little bit about Jefferson County is mentioned the fact that we have Shepherdstown PD, Charlestown, Ransom, Harpers Ferry, Oliver, and we have police officers, Shepherd University. So we're a little bit different in that aspect. But one thing I will say, we went down, as Steve kind of mentioned earlier, we went down on training this week. Most of us were in Morgantown, and Panhandle shares the same problems. We're growing. You can talk to some of the other commissioners around the state. They have problems, but it's not our problems. Actually, some of their problems are pretty sad. They're decreasing in population. And we do have a revenue issue here, trying to raise money or come up with money and ways to provide public safety for our residents. And it's important. But hopefully we can have more meetings like this and discuss some ideas. I love the ideas that are going around the table now. We're talking about giving them back to the citizens and letting the citizens vote. Well, back in 2020, there was we called it the mega bond. It was on our during our general election, and you could vote for we called it the mega bond for the Board of Education. I thought no way in the world Jefferson County would vote for a $50 million increase in taxes. We had a big turnout that year. It was a presidential election, and that building bond for the school board passed easy, very easily. So people that are moving to the Panhandle, they want these services. They want nice schools. So they want, when they call 911, they want a sheriff's officer to show up or an EMT to show up. I'll just leave it with that, and I think maybe if there's more tools we can put on our referendum for votes for our citizens, might be the best way. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Morgan County, any comments? Just a little bit on one side there.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Stolper. Fully agree with everything you said. We do things a little bit differently in Jefferson County. We have impact fees, we kind of leave those impact fees this morning. I understand y'all are looking at that, and I'll encourage that. Let growth pay for growth. That's the best way to summarize it in one sentence. I think it's a smart way to do it. One thing that we can't pay for with impact fees, and that we need Charleston's help on, is our roads infrastructure. And there's really not all that much we can do at the county level to pay for the growing need for roads. What we need is help at the state level, and I understand that there are some delegates representing the Eastern Panhandle who are looking at different approaches. And I don't want to say which one is better. I'll let y'all figure it out. But I will say that as a region, we have a lot more growth than some other areas, as Commissioner Stolper pointed out. That brings a challenge for us. If we can't have proportionate growth with our roads infrastructure, we're going to fall behind. We're not going to deliver the services that people need. We're not going to deliver the services that businesses need to come into the county. So there's a couple ways to do it. There's a lot of different ways to do it, I should say. But if our representatives in Charleston could take a look at how to get the right amount of proportionate growth with roads up in the Eastern Panhandle, we need that.
Just a little bit caveat with what Commissioner Stolper said. So I'm not, if I'm correct, Gary, didn't the county access a couple of police cars to a couple of the counties that did not have the funds to even buy a police car. So that tells you the difference with the southern part of the state needs versus us up here. So we had cars that were still usable, but not for our needs. So we ended up accessing them down to, I forget what was the first county.
It went to a city of Graham was the first.
City. So that being said, Kelly?
Yeah, just want to, a couple of pieces of information, Jefferson County Commissioner, tweet my mind on a little bit. You may or may not know, West Virginia is one of only 4 states that does not have a county road system. That happened back in about 1932 during the Depression, where everybody was falling apart, and didn't know how they were going to appoint government, and so they amended the Constitution. Actually, it was a Hampshire County governor, my cousin Herman Guy Kump, that was responsible for that. So the roads, the legislature does what they can, but Delegate Hurd can speak to this better than I can. When the legislature meets, we don't say this road goes here, this road goes there. The legislature approves the funding for, in total, for given roads. So Eastern Panhandle has some really big needs. In Berkeley County in particular, Route 9 is just, and I saw a bumper sticker the other day that said, I take my life in my hands every day, I ride Route 9. We've got some real needs, and the state funding needs to be there. We've made some progress for this month year. Oh, and one other thing, there was a lot of talk about the legislature doesn't have to prove this is what the voters do that. I've had a bill I put in every year that would authorize the processes of initiative, recall, and referendum. In the state, it hasn't gone anywhere. So those are different issues.
All right, with that, we're gonna wrap that part up. Next up, we're gonna turn it over to Mr. Wine a little bit and have a legislative discussion on eliminating the property rollback.
That's really nice. Delegate Hurd said somebody's already tried 4 times.
Can I touch on roads just for a second before you start here? So one of the things that we really need to work on with roads, and I think, and I've talked to Mike Height about this and some other legislators, is we fall into the Department of Highways Division 5. Division 5 headquarters is in Burlington, West Virginia, on the other side of Romney. Why the hell the headquarters is in Romney, I have no clue. What we need to do is there needs to either be another division or a subdivision of a regional Department of Highways in the Eastern Panhandle that services Berkeley, Jefferson, and Morgan County. And that could be right out here at the state road shed on Rockland Drive. And that could take care of Berkeley, Jefferson, and Morgan County. And here lies the problem sorry, I've got a clogged ears, I'm talking loud. In Berkeley, we don't have enough people here in Berkeley or Jefferson County. Like, I think Berkeley County has 42 slots and we have 17 employees, right? So we're super understaffed. So what do? They bring people down from Burlington to do maintenance. The last 4 years, maybe 5 years, the legislature has put an additional $150 million into the Department of Highways budget every year from surplus revenues. And something that the governor asked for and the legislature always gives him, and that's just for maintenance. That's for ditching and culverts and potholes and all that kind of stuff. So here in Eastern Panhandle, we are super, don't have enough manpower. So what they do is they bring manpower down from Raleigh or from Burlington. Well, they don't want to pay them overtime, so they leave Burlington at 7 in the morning or 7:30. By the time they get here, it's 9. They work for 3 or 4 hours. It's time to pack up, clean up, and head back to Burlington. So I've had this conversation with Patrick Morrissey, understanding that the roads in Berkeley County we can no longer be reactive to. We need new roads. We need more roads. We need turn lanes. We need byways and bypasses, and those are the things that we need to start moving for. So another thing that I'm asking the legislators is we need to work on that to see if we can get, if not a new division, a subdivision or something where we can get some more manpower closer to the Eastern Panhandle. Because I'll tell you, Romney, up in Hampton County and that area, their roads are pretty damn nice. They're pretty nice. They're working close to home. So,
we've requested that the last 2 years, and they tell us Charleston will never approve it. So hopefully Morrissey will give it to the Commissioner of Highways.
Well,
and get someone in here that'll look at the Eastern Panhandle and help us out.
well, and you never say never, Steve, because I never thought the impact of things would pass either. So.
I have one question.
my entire family, with the exception of myself, is either in law enforcement or a firefighter, every single one. And if this is what this is about, I have to know, this is my concern. I see a lot of this about roads. My concern is, my constituents, over in Inglewood, Jefferson, they don't want development. Traffic. And so, how would I know that this would be used to do roads to increase development in my district, where my constituents don't want? I mean, that's my concern, because it's all about firefighting, it's all about.
We're going to track rent, go down, just keep. We existing bills, so we're gonna have to pay.
I just wanna make sure it's not a backdoor.
Our money's going to public sector.
Mr. DeSoto, I can assure you, Berkeley County does not want to build or own roads. That's not, we need the state to be able to do that.
I'm brand new.
Yeah, that's okay, but
You know, more than most junior person in this room, but I have to represent my
we
constituents.
just want to build.
And I don't wanna, like, you know, to me, that's why I ran for it, to represent them. And I'm a religious guy, so I like, you know, I've met help and talking to people that range with me, talking to firefighters, talking to police range with me. But the one big thing I get is development.
We hear some.
Berkeley County does not have zoning for this. The subdivision comes before the planning commission. Planning commission has a road study. It goes to the state. The state will approve 600 lots on a little backcountry road. Don't think twice about it. And what's the county gonna do?
The roads portion of this.
I just wanted, I'm sorry.
The roads portion of this is existing, like, that's already, that was passed a couple of years ago for the counties to be able to implement a 1% sales tax use of road. As I read this, it looks like this is just adding a 1% for, public safety. So the road thing's already there. And none of the 55 counties are utilizing it.
And just to add a point of clarification, when the ballot, if there was a ballot referendum, the language has to detail what the money is going to be used for. So if a county chooses to put the language on their ballot, they have to outline whether or not it would be used for roads or not.
Just to follow up on the comments of Bill Hardy, I concur with 100%, particularly with our regional highway department. Two things come to mind. Number one, we were told that not only do they take people from Burlington to Martinsburg, but when it's a long day, they put them up in hotels rather than running back and forth, so that increases the cost even more. The other issue we have with the highway department is the turnover. They just can't fill the vacancies for the salaries. Just aren't competitive, particularly with heavy equipment.
And that's the real problem. Even if we got our own regional office here in Berkeley County, it's not going to change the staffing. We can't staff it now, so the money's going to be the same. We won't be able to staff it then either. So in reality, what the problem is more pay. And I think everybody in the room probably knows that.
And that gets into the county pay, the teachers, the police.
Exactly.
They try to make those. Some of you local delegates from here in Berkeley County, CMC is building an access road to Route 11. It's going to come out on Route 11 north. Highways right now are saying they're not supposed to stop right here. And you're going to have extra long tractor trailers with the low steel on it, and a dead stop going out on Route 11, it's going to be a death trap. And you need to get on your government highways and make sure that there's stop light at that intersection. People are going to die.
You know, I'm not an expert, and I just got on board this year, but the road situation, there has to be a way we can improve it, to be more proactive in our infrastructure and planning. We know we're growing, there's ways to do it, you know, and the state is not oftentimes very helpful in this. I hear that the organization out of Hagerstown is more responsive to our needs that I forgot what it's called, the Washington Metropolitan. Yeah. So, you know, whether it's Region 5 or something, you know, particularly with the governor coming from Jefferson County, you know, we've got to, you know,
put all solutions on the table here to improve the planning of our urban infrastructure. One point, I just wanted to caution, with the impact fees, there is a provision there. I know the counties don't want to take on the road maintenance, but there is a provision there to assess impact fees for roads, for public sewer, stormwater, that we've never enacted in Jefferson County since we've had it. And it requires collaboration with the State Department of Highways, and ultimately that they're going to maintain it. But if there's a way, anyway, I'm all ears to improve the situation so we can help increase our quality of life with our growth, whether it's amending the impact fee ordinance there in 720. And I guess the other question I would have out there for anyone who may be in the room that can answer it is this chapter 727, the current code, local planning, whatever it's called, that you're trying to amend here, has that actually been implemented anywhere? So we've had a number of things throughout the year with the consolidated, a number of things that are on the books that have never been utilized. So obviously this is your solution to amend that to allow for safety, emergency services, and it sounds like it could be viable, but I guess that's my point is how can we, with this or any other section of the code, increase the ways that we can be more proactive in our infrastructure planning and not less reactive to all government, county, municipality, state.
All right, with that being said, we're gonna take a quick break to, have a session right now. We got some cookies and things over here, can replenish your mind a little bit if you like, or we can have coffee, turn the lights down, turn the, an official session again. Next up, we're gonna, turn it over to our, County Administrator, Gary Wine. We're gonna talk about the legislation to eliminate the, property rollback, taxes. So, Gary, enlighten us.
I don't think it can happen. One of the parties said it won't work. So this all boils back to, let's go back 20 June with these
1990, Gary.
1990, Gary, he says, when the state decided that they were going to force the assessors to guarantee to evaluate every property owner in a county every 3 years, every time they had to do it. That was the job. So the state, the legislature was guaranteeing to the property owner, your property value is going to increase. Because they knew that the valuation and the assessments of the property historically were valued at whatever the assessor's friend, whatever they wanted it to be valued at. So the state mandated that, hey assessors, we're going here and here's what we're going to do. When they did that, they created the Property Valuation Training Commission. I think that's what it's called. These are the people that, if you're in your evaluation fund, when the assessor goes to hire people or all this stuff happens, the state tax department handles all this and does it. When they implemented this, they said in the code that the county commission may not collect more than 101% of what they collected the prior year. Meaning they could not get greater than a 1% increase of what they collected the prior year. And the important thing to remember is property that was on the books then, which isn't applicable to the new property that's coming on the tax rolls for that current year. It's just property that existed. In that same process, the Property Valuation Training Commission and the state implemented the 2% for the evaluation fund. So you hear 101%, 103%, which is, well, most everybody is 103% because 2% goes to the assessor. It's off the top. So long story short, without a public hearing, you are mandated by law to collect no more than 1% of what you collected the prior year. And if your levy rate was $13.10, and with that calculation of the new valuations that came to you, and your collection at $13.10 was $10 million. And this year, the assessor did his 1/3, and he was in a prosperous growth part of that 1/3 of that county. Now they collected $14 million. You have to roll your levy rate backwards to collect no greater than 101% of what you did the prior year. The language I'm trying to read, you have to be a lawyer, smart like Anthony to understand it, but that's what it boils down to. They wanted to ensure that the assessors and the county commission didn't take people's houses from them. Because again, back in those days, in the coal fields particularly, and in the wealthy pieces of the coal fields wherever they were, some of these properties were valued at 1/8 of what their current value should have been. So when they started this process and they implemented this, they put this safety in there, so here's what we're gonna do. We'll guarantee that it can grow no more than 101% of what it was last year, or just 1%. That's what you're talking about. So for us, at $27 million, we could, and we have, in many instances, been hit with the rollback, and that growth piece, that piece that we could have taken as revenue is gone forever. We can't ever go back to get it, because you only grew it through that piece of assessment that year. So every time you get hit with the rollback, you can forget that $800,000, $1.2 million, whatever it may be in our instance, it's gone in perpetuity. You'll never make it back. So the protection, and let me say this, with the new regulations that the assessors have to abide by, they have to say to the tax department, we've assessed this third, and I guarantee you that I have their property between X and Y. They have to keep your assessment between where the market says it's supposed to be, between X and Y. They can't not. If they are, they're breaking the law, and they'll get caught. They get audited on that every year. It says, okay, is this piece and are your values where they belong? So if you take that piece away, and this is another instance where it's only applicable to growth counties. If you're non-growth, it means nothing to you, right? If your property values don't increase, you don't see it. Matter of fact, Joe, didn't you get hit by it? What it cost you that year?
I can't remember on that year. We don't typically though, but it's a whole other issue. You have to do my assessment.
Okay. But if your assessor's doing your job.
Correct.
And you are a growth county, this hurts you. You all stand here, and God bless you for doing
I feel
what
like
you
we
do.
should be getting it every year. I mean, I think we should be in the same predicament as you. It should be terrible, and I would be here crying the same way. It's not fair for the county to grow.
All of you, fortunately or unfortunately, however you want to look at it, are tasked to support growth areas of a state that is a non-growth state. You know, I've heard 7, I believe it's probably more like 3 areas of growth. And all of the guidelines and all the rules and regulations that get evaluated are all applicable to the state as a whole 55. In many instances, that makes sense. And you've heard my bosses, you've heard Jefferson County bosses, and now you've heard Morgan County people say, hey, we're struggling, we want to provide services. And I think only to offer in defense of this, the structure and the design of the Constitution of the state, all of the features and functions are there if you're a municipality. Unfortunately, Berkeley County, we're trying to perform the functions and features of the municipality, and we're not. So the law's not there to allow us to do it. And all they're trying to do is find a method to create generate income to allow them to do the things that they're tasked to do that aren't easy because it's not written that way. So back to the 1%. Don't want you to grow any more than 101. And if you do, you have to reel your levy rate back enough till you're there, and that's it. That's what it means. Can you take it greater than 101%? Sure. Public hearing, then no greater than 10%. So for us, the maximum they could do, they could go get $2.7 million this year, and they already hit, that's it, they're done. They can never do it again. They'd be at the max. Once you hit the top of the levy rate, that's it. So you heard Sheriff Blair talk, that's $6.9 million in just black uniforms. They didn't get him a car, they didn't get him a place to work. $6.9 million gets him 36 days. So the rollback hurts. The rollback in instances, we've seen as much as 1.4 million in rollback hits. This county commission, all of them that got elected since 2011 have never, ever raised the levy rate in Berkeley County. It has either rolled itself back or it's just been left alone, but they've never raised it. Sir?
What about on the other side, if you have a slowdown in economy, you have a drop in values, you can drop it. You can drop as much as it needs to, but it can still only grow by 1%. So if you have a huge slowdown in the economy, you have a recession, home prices fall, the valuations fall by 7%.
Take 7 years to get it.
Right, it takes you 7 years to get that.
Hopefully we get that.
And even if it's just a blip, if it's a,
It happened to them in 08, or 08, 09.
Right, but that's what I was saying, they probably should have been a big effect right then.
We have to remember that they only reevaluate a third. They only reevaluate a third of the year. So it depends, by law they have to. They can do it all at once.
No, but that's gonna take some time, and it's gonna take some education of the legislature to make the everyday legislator understand that and get a hold of that, because the first thing they're gonna say is, well, it's a growth county, let's kick them in the teeth, if I'm being honest. Secondly, they will say, well, this just gives the county the ability to raise the taxes on my, people's homes. So that's gonna take some education and some time, and, you know, me and Mel, we've had these conversations, you know, on the House side, that will definitely be a daunting task to be able to explain why that is an antiquated system that is still being used, and oh, by the way, it helps growth counties.
It's such an antiquated tax system that we have in the county that it is hard to understand.
Well, in the fact that there are already regulations in play that restrict what the assessor can do with the values, they're bound anyway. They can't over-assess you. They can only do so much. This again was meant to be in place way back when, and many of you know Maura Ashews, one of the senior level people at state tax, or the auditor's office, who's retiring. He knows this back and forth and back. And he even stood in front of an audience of county commissioners and said, it's as antiquated as I've ever seen. And I believe the gentleman who wrote the code was in front of us one time at the County Commissioners Association and said, listen, it makes no sense. But as Delegate Hardy said, Commissioner-elect Hardy said, it takes a lot of education. But it isn't the win Berkeley County needs to accomplish what you heard from Sheriff Blair, you heard from Commissioner Gogenour, who was Chief Gogenour, or if we brought the ambulance authority in here. This doesn't solve the big hurdles here, but tools in the shed are important. I can appreciate and understand the gentleman over here that said, you know, overtax, overburden, and when is enough is enough. Not my piece to answer or say, but I think we're all here and understand that. But the 1% thing is so archaic and it makes no sense whatsoever.
Here?
Sir?
You mentioned that 10% you're able to hold a public hearing and bump it up 10%. When there's a radical change or some assessment, 1/3 of the county's assessed, and it changes the math so quickly. What has been Berkeley County's approach when the math insists that you roll back? Do you instead hold that public hearing and jack it up to 10%?
They've never raised it in the 11. Well, since 2011, it's not been touched.
Well, let me ask you this. That seems like a built-in relief valve.
It is.
If you are in this math equation that doesn't make sense, it has a built-in relief valve that you haven't yet used.
So there was 1 year where the rollback hit them, that they rolled back, and they went up as far as they could go without the public hearing, only to hire, I believe it was a deputy sheriff and a prosecutor, I forget what it was, but it was without public hearing. They've never had a public hearing already, they never went back.
And what's the reluctance to hold the public hearing and do this yourself instead of asking?
Well, I think if you do it and you take that and you max your levy rate out, and then it gets you to where you can get 2.7 million, let's just say we could get a quarter of what they need, it's a one and done, they're finished. The rate's the max, right? So unless property values go up, they collect no more, right? It just puts them, and there are many counties that are at the max. We're actually not, I think we're in the middle of the pack in terms of where our levy rate lives. So I think, Daryl, to speak to where I believe my boss's minds are, is they're trying to be as open and honest and diligent and find something that's long-term and not just a one-time shot that does a little bit and clouds everybody's vision and think, hey, well, they're making it. Well, they wouldn't really be making it. They'd just be taking a little piece out and still be signing. That's not their goal. I mean, they're faced right now today with a question about $12 million worth of public safety infrastructure. But if you said to the Berkeley County Commission, here's a recurring $12 million, firefighters, law enforcement, 911, when I say law enforcement, I mean school resource officers, they'd be on the street tomorrow. It'd take them 10 years to hire them. It'd take them 5 years to hire them, but they would spend every penny. They stood in public session and said, listen, whatever the means of generating new revenue is, we guarantee you, public, we will spend it all on public safety. They've asked for nothing more than help with public safety. You just heard the sheriff scream that I could use 36 more officers.
But when you've got 68, you need 36 more because you're failing, because the state's ability to perform its duties in this region, Jefferson's region, Morgan's area, our area, this isn't self-inflicted. Some of this is inflicted by other agencies not doing what they could or should do. And you get that into the code and you dig real deep, the state police aren't really the respondent for public safety. They'll tell you they're responsible for patrolling the roads and whatever, and they belong in the courts, and they're only supposed to serve writs. I heard Commissioner Gogan the other day. His only desire is to provide the public safety. That's it. Everything you've heard today come out of the 5 people that I work from Berkeley. They should follow every statement they have for public safety. And I know Morgan and Jefferson struggle with the same thing. But when it lands on the hearts and souls of the people here in Berkeley, 100% of this effort is for public safety. Right. And then it goes back, if you use the language you read, they just go back to 100% to the taxpayer. What we're asking is giving us a form of money that's gonna be more money, and a large portion of it will be paid by not our taxpayers, but other people.
The 1%. Yeah. Well, okay, you're conflating both those, or why are both those things linked? So aren't they different public policy issues? And let's set aside the 1%. Do you still need the tax rollback in addition, or is it either or?
That's not my decision. I'm telling you that they're trying to find $8 to $12 million to help with public safety. Are they going to take 24 million? No. They're going to, that's not the goal of the people that are in Berkeley. I can honestly, I'm speaking for them now, but they should be telling you right now, that's not the goal here. Their goal here is to get a revenue source where they can stand up the necessary public safety, fire law, EMS, 911, school resource officers, what they need to do. If there's too much, so 1% when you put it in play, it's in play, here it comes, right? So let's just say, hypothetically speaking, we need 12, we need 15. Well, I promise you, next year, the levy rate rolls back and eliminates the other few million we don't need. Berkeley County Commission, please, my boss, will somebody answer that, but that's not what they're trying to do. And the person putting it on a referendum, putting it on a referendum, putting it in front of the public, giving them a community, selling it, and saying, black and white, saying it, put it in literature. Listen, we're asking for this. This is what we need. If it generates back, we will reduce this. Bosses?
If you ask us if we have a choice, it's no, I mean, it's not even close. You take the 1% sales tax, obviously. But if you can't get that, we'll make sure we don't. I was in the meantime, but it's a Band-Aid on what we expect. 1% covers it all.
We're gonna ask for this for 10 years.
And guess what, as our population grows, what's this 1% do? It grows with it.
Yeah, so I personally believe that the 1% opportunity would reduce the burden on the taxpayers year 2.
People trying to do something, not just for the citizens and the taxpayers.
Right, I fully understand the 1% policy consideration that you guys are considering. What I'm struggling with is we're having a conversation about the tax rollback, and we keep talking about the 1%.
But
So what my question
the
is-
tax rollback would be across the state. I mean, everybody would benefit from it, not just Berkeley County. Everybody would benefit from it who are in a growth area.
Right.
So we're just trying to take out something that was put in the tax code 30 years ago that no longer serves the purpose.
Right.
The 1% Gary's talking about with the rollback is you can't go over 101% for the previous year. So if it's 109 like it was 2 years ago, we lost $800,000. So it's not the 1%, the other, you're talking about the 1%
So to answer your question, Daryl, they're looking for something to stick. They're not asking to leave this room and everybody go and make all of this. They don't need all of it. The Berkeley County Commission needs a 1% sale.
Well, that's what I was getting to, is you don't need both of these.
They
You
do
need
not.
one.
They do not.
I mean, you get the 1%, you're probably going to want to roll that.
I have a question about this rollback, and maybe John, Jason, or Darrell can answer this. Has the legislature ever looked at getting rid of it? Or is it because it's so much more than both counties, that it doesn't come into play because the other counties are not even in play here because they're not growing? And is that what we're looking for, is to try to get rid of it, and how hard is it to get rid of it? I guess that's my question.
I can tell you in 6 years that I've been there, last year's the first year that I heard about it, and I can tell you why it probably hasn't been addressed, because one, as I said earlier, it's a very hard concept to explain to the legislature, right? And that's not being disrespectful to anybody, but it's a hard concept to wrap yourself around. We have 5 growth counties. We don't have 5 growth counties, right? And then, you know yourself, I'm not speaking out of turn here, part of the legislature loves to kick a growth county in the teeth.
Right.
I mean, if they can take something from us that they don't have, they're fine with that. I mean, and that's gotten better. That has gotten better over the years. I mean, we've all, from the Eastern Panhandle Coalition, have worked very, very hard with our colleagues from the southern part of the state to build those relationships, and also economic development. Rising tides raise all ships. You can see it in Mason County, you can see it in the northern Panhandle. We've proven that to them. But it's a very hard concept to explain, and it's a fairly new concept to try to get rid of. And as I said, some of the delegates it'll be a very hard sell on the House side. I think the Senate could probably maybe have it on their side, but the House side is gonna be a very hard sell, because some of them southern boys are just gonna say, I'm not gonna do it. You're gonna raise taxes on my people when it won't affect them at all.
Yeah, it doesn't even affect them. That's the part they don't understand.
Right.
That's why they don't care whether it passes.
Well, that's why it's hard to get, as a collective group, it's hard for the county commission association, it's hard to get traction.
Right, because
you're telling our legislators,
they represent
but
everyone.
no one else is telling their legislators the same thing.
And I fully agree with what Gary said. I'm not seated as a Berkeley County Commissioner, but as a Berkeley County Commissioner, if I had my druthers for one or the other, I'd want the 1%, and I wouldn't care about the rollback. Sure.
Can I ask a question? So is the fix, you're asking just repeal 11.8.6, it was, the bill last year, 16.6F16, and, that's the rollback tax, and is there any other reason besides what, Delegate Commissioner Hardy just said on, who would oppose this? Like, why is it, because
I've worked on it for the last 5 years.
that's a fix, just repeal those three sections, right?
That was our attempt last year, because when you try to come with a bill that amends the code section, then you get into having to explain the issue. And that's where most people don't want to sit down and actually understand the issue. So the bill you pulled up was the attempt last year.
So
To just simply repeal the code section.
I guess I'm trying to understand the reason why that was put into the code in the first place. I'm sorry, I missed the first part of that. Is because there were some, throughout my colleagues were here explaining that the assessors were corrupt and they would overcharge sort of thing, but this only applies to the real estate tax. I know there's other folks on the personal property tax where, there's some other solutions out there of, having a more independent assessor, evaluation on these things. So maybe that can be part of the solution, or
Assessors aren't overcharging, they're undercharging, and then you catch up, and that's what it was.
So in 1990, the assessors for decades had been, they could do whatever they want with their other assessor. So if I'm the assessor and you own a very nice piece of property, very nice house, I could assess you at $5 if I wanted to. There were no standards of what was to be done. So they implemented this process and said, okay, assessors, you now have to evaluate property at these certain medians based on what the market value was in your area. And then you have to have it between, I think it's 100 and 110%. 90 and 110. They don't have a choice. They have it in that window. So in order for them to get you, the property owner who used to be assessed at $20, if your house is really worth $200,000, imagine what year one is looking like, right? So they put this in and they said to the county commissions who collect from that levy rate, hey, assessors are going to work through this, we're going to get all this done. You can imagine the swinging tax income those next years. They said, no, you're only going to get essentially 1% of that per year. If any more of it shows up, it's going to take the levy rate high. They don't want that. That's why it made all the sense in the world, because in those days, for a person like you, who had a swing of 250%, you got professional tax. But they guaranteed you could go up and we could go up more than that, which means we have to move the regular tax. So I guess is there a way to alleviate that concern without, I don't know,
cap on it or something?
What's already done, the assessor can't allow, they have to keep it between 90 and 110%.
Well, why didn't it have, instead of repeal it, you know, I don't know.
Oh, let you grow maybe 105% instead of 101%.
I mean, that's a, you know, I try not to let the perfect be the enemy of the good, if that's, some improvement, if you can't get the other, just repeal it entirely, well, that's, you got plan B.
That was, the repeal entirely was plan B. We tried for several years prior to a full repeal to amend the code section, to raise the number or approach it in several very, we've tried multiple different ways, and we're always met with the same responses.
What are the responses?
But basically what was it, where is it, John?
Yeah.
Okay, that his issue, or the issues that you hear are, no one raised the property taxes on my people, and you said something else that I've heard several times.
It helps growth counties.
Yeah, it helps growth counties, they don't wanna help growth counties. And then simply, they don't, I've talked about this before, but in a 60-day session, if there's a very complicated issue, it's oftentimes, it's too complicated to address in a 60-day session. And so they just vote no because it's a very complex issue.
And to get something like this through the legislature, you need to do a study resolution, you need to spend, it needs to be worked through interims. It probably needs to be worked through like a whole year of interims, and so it can be slowly be absorbed. Because it is, and not only are you trying to absorb this during a legislative session, oh, by the way, there's 200 other bills that we're trying to work on too. And it becomes daunting, and like Summer said, when in doubt, vote no. And so it takes some time for education.
You're gonna have to educate me, I'm not following. So this bill, this allows, I understand this allows a 1% increase in property tax that we're wondering. What's that?
Current law, right? You know, it allows for the collection of 1% of more taxes, nothing to do with the increase on the tax. Property tax collection. Let's just say Berkeley County collected last year $10 million, okay? The assessor does his reevaluation. We come to this year's books, the same tax rate, and we're slated to collect 11, which is greater than 1%.
Like that would be huge,
The house property value would be the value of the existing property, not new stuff. If the value of the existing property grows enough to create more than 1% of additional revenue for us, my bosses, they will have to in turn roll your tax rate back, the entire county's tax rate back, so we collect no more than 1% greater.
They can only collect $10,100,000. Say I'm looking at that house across the street, it's owned by a person who fixed it income. And it doubles in value. How would that affect their taxes?
No, not at all. Not at all. Their tax rate stays the same. We were slated to collect more because their value went up.
Yes.
They're gonna have to pay that same value, but we're slated to collect more than 1% than we did the year before. We have to lower the levy rate, which will be applicable to every property owner in the county. So we collected no more than that 1%, that $100 instead of the $1,000.
Gary, that's an aggregate number too, that's, I mean, my property taxes could go up 12% more. And unless we're talking in aggregate.
It's all about the collection. It's not to do with the rate.
And you don't lose that amount of money just for 1 year, you lose it forever, in perpetuity.
So, the last 3 years, say the last 3 years, it's easy to say everybody's house generally has went up 5-6% per year in value. If every house in the county did, they can't collect it 5 or 6%. Because that would make the collections 5 or 6% higher. They're only allowed by state code to go up 1% in any given year. So the problem with passing the law is that to conservatives, which obviously is low, to conservatives, it seems like a tax increase. And that's,
And it's
I mean,
only,
at the end of the day,
and it's
that's
an
why I don't
assessment
tax.
increase, not a tax increase. Your assessment went up, so you pay more taxes for an assessment. Same rate. Yes, just,
I mean, my argument as commissioner is always this, you know, I get it, you don't wanna pay more taxes for your house, but I bet if you sell your house tomorrow, you wanna sell it for what it's worth. You don't wanna pay taxes on what it's worth, but you certainly wanna sell it for what it's worth. And they always say, well, yeah, well, of course, I can't have both ways.
I think that horse is dead pretty good. Anybody else want to take a shot at the horse?
You're still wondering why it doesn't pass.
Yeah, we can probably do a subcommittee on this and still not get it done.
Do a sub to the subcommittee.
But also, we've got Greg Rhoe and Jim Millette. Oh, I'm sorry guys, jail bill. And he's gonna talk to us about our jail bill, so that's another force we're gonna kill.
We're sitting there all day waiting on that.
Now, the good news is this one literally does affect every county.
Yeah, but before I get to the jail bill, there's a couple things I wanna let you know that we've been able to do, and we're hoping that it will produce, but we won't know until the next tax year. And that is, we went after the out-of-state tax. We had an agreement between the county commission's office, the assessor's office, and the Berkeley County Sheriff's Office to try and target the out-of-state tax, the people that were working and living here, bringing their children here to school, and not paying the personal property tax. So their efforts, along with the assessor's office, they've contacted over 5,500 persons that they've identified. So we won't know those results, but what we've asked for with the school system in particular is that we're hoping that they would use that money for school resource officers. When they can identify those extra dollars coming in to their general fund or into that fund. We've dedicated our extra money to the sheriff for extra deputies. So we're flipping every rock that we can flip to try and find these dollars to get people taken care of and have a safe community. Then another thing I want to touch on real quick is we've also created TIF funds. We have 2 tax increment finance TIF funds in the county. We have a North TIF and a South TIF. And you talked about the pilots a while ago, Chuck. Hopefully, these TIF funds will eliminate the need for a pilot because those tax dollars will stay in that general area of that TIF fund to help pay for infrastructure, so that we don't have to go to the ratepayers to say we need to extend water lines and sewer lines, or maybe even a roadway into a place that we can use these TIF funds off of the taxes generated in that area right there. So it's just another way we're trying to protect the ratepayer. That's all we're doing. So in doing that, we're also able to expand our tax base, and we're also creating jobs. So, you know, the county commission is the one that actually loses the money in those TIFs, because we're gonna put those dollars into the infrastructure so that we don't have to go to the regulator.
And are those 30-year tests?
Yes.
30?
So, the jail bill. First of all, I want to thank every sitting delegate and senator in this room for your work on the jail bill 2 years ago. It's somewhat of a complicated bill because I'm not a numbers guy. And I called Summer right away. I said, I'm sitting on the porch. I got both my shoes off. I'm counting my fingers, my toes, trying to figure this thing out. It is a little bit complicated, but Senator Blair he simplified it for me. I thought it was good. But had it not been for them in their efforts 2 years ago, our jail bill, we would be like some other counties right now and probably perhaps not paying their jail bill. I know I was on an interim meeting
that Senator Blair, and I don't remember your House colleague, Kelly, spoke about, they had this intro committee, I think it was in June or July, and there were 3 counties who had not paid their jail bill, and in an amount of $10 million. They can't. They're physically, financially not able to pay for their jail bill. So I got a little bit frustrated when I saw that our jail bill costs have continually gone up since July. July, August, September, and October, compared to the year before, is approximately a quarter of a million dollars higher than what it was the previous year. And I'm like, what in the world's going on? Because the first year that this bill came out, we saw about a $350,000 savings. And we're like, man, this is really good. It's not where I want it, but it's really, really good. So July, August, September, October, we're at $260,000 higher than the previous year. Our day report center, we have a day report center that is a fantastic organization within our county. They're saving us, without a doubt. Let me back up. Let me get to the important stuff. The important thing is our day report center, number one, saving lives. We're saving families. We're getting people healthy, create productivity. We're keeping families together that otherwise the breadwinner is in jail. But we've got him on home confinement where he can still go to work, still be with his family, and still produce without having to get on some type of state subsidy, his entire family. So there's lots of good things there for the family, and that's really, really important. We a lot of times want to look at dollars. Dollars are important, that's about what all we talked about today. But we've got 332 people in our day report center that come through there. We've got 129 on home confinement, and we've got 92 in our community services, which, when you do the math, is going to save Berkeley County in excess of $8 million a year. We can't afford not to do this, let alone all the benefits I just talked to about with the family. And I've seen it firsthand, and I don't want to keep beating on this, but I've been in those houses, I've been in those cars, and I've done CPR on a lot of folks who have overdosed.
Just don't want to do anything.
But we have a program that's helping people in its work. And save us money, but our jail bill is still out of whack. So, Senator Berkeley says, well, we need to look at the pre-trial days and the post-trial days. And that's why I like talking to other people, because I don't think that's it. But I can write it down and I can find out. Because our days of the per diem stops once they're sentenced. But there apparently is a drag time in our court system in getting these people out of jail into the courtroom to be sentenced. Now, I say that if the state continues this particular case, because it's the Supreme Court that controls the courts, they're in there on a state charge. I say, they'll probably have a court-appointed lawyer, which is by the state, once again. I would like to say that if that case is continued, that the state picks up the bill from that point forward, not just the day that they're sentenced. But if they're going to decide that this case to be continued, and we don't have a say in it, we have not one word in this. Only thing we've got in it is money, and it costs us a lot. So what I'm asking for is to please, Senator, because I know you're on that committee, and I don't know who else, I'm sorry to say that, but continue to work on this jail bill, not just for us, but for every county in the state of West Virginia. And really the ones that can't pay the jail bill. Because they're gonna be suffering on the other side when they apply for grants or whatnot, they'll probably be turned down because no, you owe a jail bill. Well, there's repercussions when you owe bills that you can't pay. So I'm asking you to please take into consideration the jail bills in these counties because it's eating us alive. We budgeted $2.35 million, and it's down from what we've done in the past. But that's $2.35 million that we can, A, put the public safety, B, put towards quality of life, and things that are important for families and children and people here to enjoy. So please don't stop working on this bill because it still needs help. And the bad thing about this is we continue to grow, and we are, there's no doubt, we can't put a stop sign out there. The more people, more problems. And not everybody coming here are good people. It's that simple. So they end up in our judicial center, and then they end up in the regional jail. Who pays the bill? We do. So we will continue to partner with the state anywhere we can. I like partnerships a lot. I think if we can split things up, and I know that the state's already paying a large portion. I know that healthcare is eating the state alive in our judicial or in the jail system. The healthcare is eating them alive. So I understand some of that, but please continue to work on this jail bill and try to get it down. Hopefully, perhaps, I've heard it said around on occasion, they may take the employees of the jail system and put them in the general budget. If they did that, that'd be a tremendous weight lifted off of the counties. So I'm open to any suggestions, and I just ask and plead to you that you continue to work on that jail bill. And we're going to continue to do what we do here, not necessarily for the dollar, but to keep the families healthy, keep them together, keep them productivity, and keep the family unit together. That's really important. Thank you.
Commissioner, you were saying continue working on the jail bill, and I know Jason did a great job on the stuff we did get approved. I'm telling you, but what specifically could you kind of give us some guidance what we want to see do? I know we talked before where, resting officer days, resting agency days, things like that, but you mentioned moving employees over to state employees. What more specifically can we do to help?
Yeah, one of the other things I mentioned, that other part was that if there's a continuation of that particular case, that the state pick it up from that point forward.
Okay.
Otherwise, we have to wait until the sentence. There could be a continuation and go, another 60 days before now we will go and be sentenced. So I'm saying is that when the state, when the prosecutors and the court-appointed attorney come together and say, we're not ready for this, I'm going to ask for an extension for another 60 days so I can get everything squared away here. The counties across this entire state continue to pay that bill. Now it stops once they're sentenced. So we need to get them into the courtroom quicker for sentencing. I don't know what that lag time is. I don't know why that lag time is. I don't. Those are things right there that really help.
And there's a number of reasons for continuances. You're saying that you want just, if the state's the one asking for continuance, not the defendant or the judge in the case asking for continuance. There's a public safety issue in the balance where the judge has a lot of discussion, hey, if they're not a public debt, home confinement, or 1 day in jail, not 60 or whatever, and do some sort of workaround there. But I guess
That's your ask, was it was only if the state was asking for the continuance for the state.
Well, and of course, that lawyer, 9 times out of 10 is gonna be a state-appointed lawyer as well.
The state, the defendants.
Yes, sir.
So any contingency.
Yes, sir.
You ever told you to say, what would you rather have, 1% sales tax or the go-go reduction? 1% sales tax.
Here's an answer for Dale. Here's the answer for Dale, both boss.
Very good. All right, now we get to talk about a little bit about our infrastructure and how it's being taxed. And with Rhoe and Jim Millette, I'd like to bring them up here and have them introduce themselves and kind of give you all a little bit of insight about what we're faced with on Berkeley County level. So, and how we can enlighten our delegates and senators. Rhoe?
Thank you.
Meet the new delegation and the former delegation.
Well, first of all, I want to thank the county council for allowing me a few minutes here today. It's going to be hard on the last, if I look correctly, I'm the last person on the agenda, separating you probably from getting out of here. Everybody's probably getting sleepy, so I'll try to keep it very high level, and I'll try to keep, hopefully you'll learn something and walk away with something. The other thing I want to do is I want to thank each and every delegate in here for being willing to step forward and put yourself out there to run for an elected office and attempt to represent the constituents here in Berkeley, Morgan, and the Eastern Panhandle. It's a very, very difficult job, and certainly you guys probably know that better than me. Some of you have been doing it for a long time. Some of you are just getting started into it. Most of you probably don't know me. My name is Rhoe, and I am a lifelong resident of Berkeley County. I currently live in a house that's about 150 feet from where the home I was raised in used to stand. And I'm a graduate of Hedgesville High School, which is the old middle school. Thank you. And I'm a graduate of Shepherd University when it was Shepherd College, and a graduate of West Virginia University. I was first appointed to the board of the Water District in 2003. Previous to that, I served about 9 years on the Hedgesville Public Service District Water Board. I think I was appointed to the Sewer District Board in 2016 or 17, and keep it a secret, don't tell anybody, but I also happen to serve on the Stormwater Board. I'm not going to talk about that at all today. The other thing I want to say is that I'm not going to ask you all for any money today, but I reserve the right to do that in the future. So, thank you.
He's got it on the screen if he didn't offer it.
Pardon me?
I was just letting him know what you're saying on the screen.
Okay. It was interesting, I saw on May 8, 2024 on the digital edition of the Wall Street Journal, right in the center on the very first page on the website was the headline, "Desperate for Workers, Dead Set Against Migrant Labor, the West Virginia Dilemma." It was a hit piece on West Virginia. It was an interesting article. I'm sure they cherry-picked the dates, but basically they were lambasting West Virginia because it had passed laws that forbid having sanctuary cities in the state of West Virginia, and that essentially all of our problems could be solved if we just allowed immigration, whether legal or illegal, into the country and into our state and solve the problems. The interesting thing about that is if you read that article, you would walk away from the situation saying that all of West Virginia is basically a desolate place that's lost population. They don't have enough workers. They don't have enough people to care for their elderly. It really was a very, very depressing article. There was one item in that article that caught my attention, and it's this. It says, West Virginia is the only state with fewer residents than it had in 1940. And that is the dichotomy of what we deal with here in West Virginia. Like you guys, I've made a lot of trips to Charleston to talk not only to legislators, but folks at the DEP, the folks at the Public Service Commission. And I can tell you, they do not understand the world that we live in here in the Eastern Panhandle and particularly in Berkeley County. I will say this, in my period of being in and involved in the utilities in Berkeley County or in West Virginia, I think there are two critical events that happen that even allow us to be where we are here today in Berkeley County. The first of that is we used to have 3 separate water districts in West Virginia. They were merged together in July of 2001. That was certainly a step that needed to be taken and allowed us to form a much stronger entity to be able to meet the demands of the future. The second is, and I know some of the county council in here and maybe even delegates may bristle a little bit with this, but it was the passage of Senate Bill 234 in 2015. And what Senate Bill 234 did in 2015 is it removed from the rate making the Public Service Commission for large PSDs and water utilities in West Virginia. I could do a whole presentation on just the impact that that's had. I won't do that, but to suffice it to say, the Public Service Commission in West Virginia basically made it very, very difficult to do rate cases for water and sewer utilities. It was very, very expensive to do rate cases for water and sewer utilities in West Virginia. And often what they would do is that they would adjust the rates so low that the utilities did not have sufficient working capital to maintain, to invest for the future, and things of this nature. This was brought about, the Senate Bill 215 was brought about largely because the 2 public service districts in Berkeley County were the first 2 public service districts in the state to be rated by a third-party bond rating agency. Public service, the water district is rated by Moody's. The sewer district is rated by Standard & Poor's. They pour over the financial statements, and what they did, they wrote a scathing report about the shape of utilities in West Virginia, that how they were starved for capital, they relied too much on borrowed money, and the fact that they didn't have the working capital to invest in the future. So that to me was a very important thing. It's allowed us to respond more quickly to the growth demands here in Berkeley County. I will say this, before, when we were under the PSC rules for rate making, every project that we did had to file for a certificate for convenience and necessity. Each one of those processes, an arduous process for a longer, took 270 days, just simply to get that through the Public Service Commission and ultimately end up with adjusted rates or approval to go through with the project. If we had to do that in Berkeley County, we would have run out of water probably quite some time ago because we wouldn't have been able to take the necessary steps, invest in the necessary infrastructure to keep things going. The thing I do want to point out to everybody is that these 2 public service districts are the largest public service district in the state. The water district total assets of June 30th, 2024 was $198.8 million. The sewer district total assets for the same time period was $238.1 million. And I'm going to show you here in a little bit, you'll see how the water district assets probably in the next 3 years are going to increase easily by $100 million. Some of the history of what we have here in Berkeley County, as of the 2024, we had 31,549 connections. In 2001, we had 12,208. That's a 158% increase. Out of those total increase of 19,341, I'd like to point out that the connections to the system in the last 5 years have been 5,400, and I don't of exactly how many buildable lots we have available and approved in Berkeley County. I don't know what that number is. I do know this. The water district folks in the pipeline that we have, projects that are coming over our desk, is we've identified 3,552 residential units that are in the process of various processes of either being designed, some station of approval, or some are moving forward. So certainly the available buildable lots in West Virginia, or in Berkeley County, certainly is much greater than that number, because there's already subdivisions that have been approved and the lots haven't yet built out. It also indicates that in all likelihood, unless something really bad happens to our economy, that the connection rates that we're seeing of over 1,000 new connections a year is probably going to continue for the foreseeable future. I asked, my appearance here kind of came about because I was talking to Jim Whitaker and Eddie, is I was thinking about trying to have a separate meeting for the delegates and state senators at the water district, because we have an unprecedented capital program for the water district going on at this particular point in time. And of course, that would have required you guys for me to get something ready for you guys to attend another meeting, and they graciously offered me to come to this meeting so you don't have an extra meeting to put on your calendars, and hopefully you can walk away here with something that's very interesting. For the water district, we had a confluence of a couple different issues. We've been impacted by high demand for growth, not only both commercially, both residentially, as far as customers and connections go. The second factor that we were also impacted by is that one of our major water production facilities in Bunker Hill had reached the end of its useful life. That plant in Bunker Hill was put in service in the 1960s. The methodology that's used in treating water in that particular plant is virtually non-existent anywhere in the country anymore. We may be the only plant that uses that method. It was simply a situation where that particular facility had worn out. But if you look at what we have going on right now at the water district, as far as projects that are either A, under contract, or B, soon to be bid, you can see that we have the Pikeside Water Main project at almost $10 billion. We have the Potomac River expansion going from 6 million gallons per day to 10 million gallons per day at $42.3 billion. The replacement of the Bunker Hill plant, $79.5 million, which that plant, the old plant has to stay in service while they're building the new plant, so it's quite a tricky and tough construction area. And the Bunker Hill water mains to move water out of that plant to the tune of about $3,750,000. Currently, we have 2 million gallon storage tanks that have been designed and we're getting ready to bid possibly in the first quarter of 2025. Those two water tanks, one at Tabor Station, the other at Ridge Road in Hedgesville. We haven't, in fact, our meeting Monday evening, we're going to talk about finding the money for those, whether we're going to borrow some of the money, whether we're going to allocate some of our capacity improvement fee collections to that. But we haven't financed those, and we haven't set them up for a bid schedule yet. But I would anticipate those would bid in the first quarter, the first half of 2025. That means that we've got roughly at or near about $157.5 million in projects in the very near term. They're either underway or soon to be bid. And I've been told by my friends at the WDA, the folks at our bond council, is that there's no other numbers anywhere close to this as far as water utilities go in the state of West Virginia. If you look at the spreadsheet that's on the stage here, we were very, very lucky to get some significant grants to go against this program. And you can see there where those particular items came from. But I want to put everybody's attention over to the last column, which I call skin in the game. And I get that term from the folks at the West Virginia Economic Development Office, for whatever reason, love that term. we won't want to give you money unless you've got skin in the game. And I got so kind of sick of hearing that, because I'm thinking, well, if it's a $10 million project and you're only giving us $1 million, that's $9 million worth of skin in the game. That's pretty easy to figure out. But as you can see here, effectively, the residents, the ratepayers in Berkeley County, West Virginia, have about $81 million of skin in the game for these related projects. And that can be related to, if you look at the next page, to a multi-year rate increase that was approved by the county council that started in June of 2023 and phased in over a period of time to June of 2027. Obviously, we're a couple steps into that. The next largest step is in 2025. That is the biggest single step that we have, and that's when the debt service and the various investments for the large amount of the Bunker Hill plant and the Potomac River wastewater treatment plant are going to come on board and have to be serviced by the district. I want to point out one important, very important thing here, and again, this is skin in the game. When we looked at this, we knew that the rate impact was going to be dramatic. We also knew that over the last very recent years, from 2017 probably forward, is that the mix of customers for the district and demands had changed dramatically. And one of the biggest advents of that, of course, was bringing on Procter & Gamble, which is our largest user, about 1 million gallons a day. But there are other large users, and we did what's called a cost of service study. And what that does is it allocates the impacts based on the demands of the water that you have to deliver to both small customers and larger customers, and attempts to allocate the cost or the revenues that's needed to amortize that appropriately and fairly to the ratepayers. So if you look at this, you'll see from where we started prior to June of 2023 to where we end up in June of 2027, we will raise residential fees, effectively small users, 53.6%. Large users, which is anybody over 90,000 gallons per month, their rates went up 69.85%. So what that does is it more fairly allocates that burden of the assets that we have to deliver these demands between residents and commercial customers. The last thing I want to point out is that as far as the water utility goes, we are in a race for time. Most of you probably know that we have another large user that's being constructed right now, CMC, which is located in the northern end of the county. That user's, at this particular point in time, looking at an average demand of 600,000 gallons a day. That's 219 million gallons a year. And as you can see by looking at this chart here, effectively the orange line is what our demands are. The green line is 80% of our total production capabilities, which is kind of an area that you don't want to get involved to try to have some redundancy and some makeup capabilities in the system. As you can see, that orange line has gone up over that 80% line for some period of time, and it gets awful close to that maximum number there before we get the river plant online, hopefully in 2028. So that is what we're facing with here in Berkeley County, and I just wanted to, I hope you get some idea of the demands that we're facing. I'm sure everything you've heard today has been talked about as far as the resources, the infrastructure demands of these growth counties, or of this growth county. I think we're the fastest growing, at least what I've seen in the census data in the state. And these demands are real. I'm gonna talk very briefly about the sewer utility. The sewer utility in Berkeley County is in a bit of a different situation than what the water utility is. But as most of you know, Berkeley County is in the Chesapeake Bay watershed. We are under strict compliance and restriction level efforts for the amount of phosphorus and nitrogen that we can discharge into the watershed. Years ago, the four plants, the four wastewater treatment plants that Berkeley County operates in could not meet those phosphorus and nitrogen load limits that are going into Chesapeake Bay. They didn't, the technology, they weren't capable of treating at those levels, which raked up many violations for both the DEP and the EPA, ultimately led to some violations that were assessed against the sewer district, and also ultimately led to a consent decree. What did happen in 2016 is that a major upgrade took place to the four wastewater treatment plants to the tune of about $70 million. That's what was spent on the four plants in Berkeley County. And that upgrade did allow for those plants to begin, or to start to meet the nitrogen and phosphorus loadings in the Chesapeake Bay to keep us in compliance. That $70 million back in that days would easily account to today, if we had to do it today's dollars, probably $110 or $120 million. So in that regard, the amount of money that we're spending in water and sewer is very, very comparable. There were significant grants that were also available. I think there was a special Senate bill that was done, Senate Bill 425 from what I was told, that applied that provided about $15 million of the $70 million that was spent for relief for the counties that were in the Chesapeake Bay. We got it in Berkeley County, Martinsburg got it, I'm sure Hampshire County got it, some other counties got it that are in the Chesapeake Bay watershed. As a part of the consent decree that we entered into to resolve that litigation, we had to do, and what's ongoing now, is conduct a capacity assessment of the entire system in Berkeley County. We had to increase compliance, and by increasing compliance, they required us to upgrade collection systems, upgrade treatment systems, replace, eliminate, upgrade pump stations, reduce I&I, which is inflow and infiltration coming from non-domestic source uses. And we've been working on that, and we're currently in the process of working through that consent decree, which is a multi-year agreement. We've recently committed about $13.4 million worth of projects in the sewer utility, and with that money, we eliminated 7 package plants, we did 7 pump station upgrades, we did some line replacement, and we did an upgrade to our dewatering process at one of our wastewater treatment plants. Looking forward, currently under construction and or under contract, we have about $17.2 million worth of projects currently under contract and under construction in Berkeley County. The Woods wastewater treatment plant upgrade at $9.5 million. North Winds extension project is about $5.9 million, and the Chopper extension to eliminate a pump station is about $1.8 million. Early in next year and the next 2 fiscal years, we're probably going to have about another $25 million worth of projects that we're going to probably do over those 2 years. That includes a capacity upgrade at the O&H plant, headworks upgrades at Inwood and Baker Heights, pump station upgrades and elimination of pump stations and in the system for a total of about $24.75 million. If you remember earlier, I said that we had to do a capacity assessment we're required by the Department of Justice to do a capacity assessment. That project is ongoing, we'll probably finish in the first quarter of 2025. I do not have final updates from that data yet. But one of the requirements of the DOJ was that we had to do a robotic inspection of every sewer line in Berkeley County. That alone was over $4 million. And we're finally winding that up here at the end of this year. We had a meeting this past Tuesday night to look at some of the things that looks like it's out in front of us. And the preliminary numbers, again, it's not final, it won't be final to the first quarter of 2025. Looks like there's about $221 million worth of projects that need to be undertaken in the sewer district over the next years. Now, the key to that is how many years is it going to be? Our proposal right now, or what we're going to submit, I think, again, it's not final, but what we're going to submit says this $221 million would be spread out over a proposed timeline that goes through 2056. If that's the case, we would be averaging about $7.1 million a year on average of these types of improvements going forward in each year of those particular, of that particular timeline. And there is a maximum, because you can only split up projects so much, there's a maximum year in there of about $11.8 million. I will say this timeline has to be approved by the EPA as part of our consent decree. So, I have asked whether they think that the EPA will agree to the 2056 timeline, and I haven't got any assured answers of whether that will be the case. Perhaps with the change in management of the EPA, maybe it can be done. The people that are working on this were not optimistic that we could keep it that long. They indicated that ones they submitted before, they've always shortened the project. So we certainly didn't want to propose a short timeline, so we want to propose a longer timeline, thinking that it might get shortened, and we're kind of at the mercy of the Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA, to approve that, to get us through that particular system. Obviously, if we compress the timeline, if we're doing that $221 million worth of improvements, it's going to increase the annual contributions that we have to make either in borrowed funds or something in order to complete those projects on a more advanced timeline. Okay, well, I'm done here today, and I just wanted to say this. I hope that you walk away with two impacts here today. Is that when it comes to growth-related impacts and infrastructure in Berkeley County, we have no peers in West Virginia. It's not like this in any other county in West Virginia. They're not facing the demands that we are here. I'm not just talking about water and sewer utilities. I'm talking about first responders, law enforcement, and certainly the road situation here is just a travesty for what's happened here as far as most of the residents that live here for a long time are concerned. The last thing that you legislators, I think, need to be attuned to, it's something that took me a long time to learn in the utility business. There's two types of capacities. There's a hydraulic capacity, either in water or sewer, which means the pipe's only so big, the pump's only so big, you can only move so much water, you can only treat so much water. Those things are pretty easy to predict and can be corrected. But there's a second, and sometimes more abrupt and more impactful restriction, and that is a regulatory capacity. Suddenly, the EPA, the DEP reclassifies some chemical or introduces some new treatment process that has to be done in a plant. Those things can happen very, very rapidly and can have a dramatic impact. I'll point to what happened in Martinsburg's plant when the EPA recommended lower PFAS levels. That plant could not meet those, they immediately took that plant offline. That was a 5 million gallon a day plant. That's how quickly these things can change. The other thing that can happen is that with those items and with processes, there has to be a new process introduced to eliminate that PFAS, which requires not only the cost to do that process, but it can also affect the throughput of the plant. So where you had a 5 million gallon a day plant previously, because you gotta do this other process, you may not be able to put 5 million gallon a day through that plant. So I just want you to understand how important regulatory burdens and the impacts that they can have on water and sewer utilities, and ultimately, the customers end up paying for all of that. And one of the big things that's on the horizon today is PFAS. And that's gonna be an issue that's gonna increase costs. It's gonna create waste products that are gonna be very, very difficult and expensive to dispose of, because once you get the PFAS out of the water, it's a forever chemical. What do you do with it? How do you dispose of it? It's gonna be a nightmare situation. Hopefully, we can get some type of regulatory relief that at the federal level and not have to be faced that in the future. Again, I wanna thank you for your time today. I hope you learned something. I hope you walk away with some information. And I just want to say this, I'm available at any time if anybody wants to meet, have lunch, whatever, to go in more detail about any of these items. Jim and I will always try to be available to meet those needs. Curtis at the sewer district would do the same thing. Thank you again for your time. Have a good day.
Greg, hold on a minute, I think I might have a question or two for you.
Okay? Yeah.
So Greg, you showed the chart of the increase in rates.
Yes.
Can you just put in perspective what those rates, how those rates compare to other counties across the state once they're implemented?
I can. I will say this. I was going to bring that, but I didn't. I will say this. The rate fully implemented, and I can provide you that, Jason, our ranking within the state. I can provide you that. It's actually in that spreadsheet that I had it hidden, and it gets so fine that you can't really see it. But I will say this. When our rates are fully implemented, they are still lower than West Virginia Americans' rates for residential customers that they were prior to us increasing in 2020. West Virginia American has a rate increase every year, so we should stay well below those. But we will be in the top probably 25% of rates in West Virginia.
Simplify it for me about the demand and the capacity that you have. I mean, in the next couple of years, 2, 3, 5, whatever, the demand on the water, how concerned are you, and should anyone be about the demand on the water in the next few years?
Well, I think everybody should be concerned about the demand on water in the next few years. Residential demands are not particularly troubling. Large commercial, industrial demands, we should look very, very carefully at
If we
those.
had another,
So let me just say one other thing. If you're looking at what we're doing and how quickly this can go away, we're expanding the Potomac River plant from 6 to 10 million gallons of water a day. CMC's gonna take 15% of it, potentially. Okay, that's how quickly that it can go away. The second thing is, and I've got folks working on this, is that as expensive as it is to take that plant from 6 to 10 million gallons a day, the next level of growth in Berkeley County is gonna come at astronomical cost as far as water goes. Because when we do this last upgrade at the Potomac River plant, we will basically be maximizing what we can bring in from the river as far as the physical intake schedule. So the next upgrade, the water coming out of the river, is gonna require new intakes and additional treatment capacity to move forward.
so as we start to attract more CMCs and P&Gs and large companies like that, they could put a significant strain on our water. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
So Are you guys, or is the water department, are you guys looking at all, or is there any talks of any supplying water to any facilities outside of Berkeley County?
Too many facilities outside of Berkeley County?
Yeah.
We have customers in Jefferson County that are with us for a long time.
Are you looking to expand, or
No.
there's some rumors of expanding into some new potential plants there? So
There's an additional, there's the one property that actually where Hospice of the Panhandle is, in that particular area there that goes into Jefferson County. That we do have service to that area. We've already provided service to that area, but we are not looking to expand.
The reason I asked the question is I heard a rumor that the proposed water bottle facility in Middleway is going to be supplied water by Berkeley County, is that right?
We are going to be supplied water by Berkeley County, but it's only for domestic use. We do have a long service
Right.
line for that.
Right, not-
And
not for
it's
the-
25,000 gallons a day, I think.
10,000.
10,000 gallons a day is limited in that agreement.
Right, so it's not, I wasn't suggesting, I'll make it clear, it's not to fill the water bottles, it's just to supply water to the facility.
Domestic use.
Right, so I mean, and I'm not saying that's a good or bad idea, but we just went through a couple of questions about how the demand is going to increase. A couple of more large facilities would put a big strain on it, and here we're now supplying water to companies outside of our county. Is that really a great idea?
Well, I guess you could argue that.
You make it pretty
I mean, we would not be doing a large user outside of our county. We have other, it's not like, the issue gets a little bit further, because we do have customers, have had customers in Jefferson County for, ever since the districts came together in 2001. That was a big issue for us, and that's why we limited that agreement to just simply 10,000 gallons a day domestic water. So the answer to that question is, the board is not likely to do that. 10,000 gallons of water a day, if we can't do that, we're in bigger trouble, so that's not impactful.
Well, right, but it's 10,000
But
there. and
to
there-
your
hold
point,
on.
to your point,
Hold on.
when you're looking at attracting large industrial users in Berkeley County, CMC, Procter & Gamble, I know somewhere somebody did a spreadsheet about how all of that plays out, all the costs associated with that. But those are gonna be very, very expensive customers from a utility base.
Sure.
A couple different reasons, not only to the supply to demand, but just think, for example, PSC recommends that you have 2 days of storage. So you bring in 1 million gallon a day customer, you suddenly need another 2 million gallon storage tank, which is another $10 million over and above whether you even supply the water today. So those are very, very expensive customers to bring in here. And I would argue that we probably haven't totally allocated the cost for some of those items, but we have to be very, very careful about it in the future.
Well, and then I recognize and appreciate 10,000 gallons of water is not a hell of a lot of water, but, you know, if we're gonna continue to allow.
I just said we weren't.
Hold on. If we're gonna continue to allow 10,000 here and there and, you know, multiple times, then that all adds up, and that's not.
Very good. Anything else? Yes, sir.
When CMC, I remember hearing some talk about them possibly using discharge water from the treatment plant there on Scrabble. Is that something that's in the works, or is that out, is that scrapped now? or-
We just had a meeting just a couple of weeks ago on that. That has been on and off. Gotta tell you, CMC has not been very transparent in dealing with them. They have promised us that they will get with us after the holidays to look at using the waste treatment water out of the North End plant. We are pushing for that on both the water and sewer side. That does 2 things. It saves 600,000 gallons per day of production capacity of Potomac River. The throughput that we have at the North Treatment Plant coming into that plant is about 1 million gallons a day. So if 600,000 gallons of that could be used for non-potable purposes, theoretically, we could reduce the phosphorus and nitrogen loads that we are discharging back into the bay by 60%. Now, that's an oversimplification, but that's very much what we're trying to do. We are pushing very, very heavy for that. It's very unlikely that we would have a customer close enough to one of our plants that would have a need for that type of non-potable water. I really hope we can get it done.
So the logistics for that probably isn't that terribly bad, is it? I mean, there'd be a pipeline from the plant to CMC, but as the crow flies, it's not that far.
We've done some estimates on that as far as what the sewer district would have to do. It requires a pump station and some lines. It's also gonna require CMC, in all likelihood, to build a holding tank on their facility. Because they have pressure requirements for their systems and things of this nature. So effectively, they would probably have to use that, repressurize the water to be able to use it for their needs. Having said that, that's a capital expense. I think we did some calculations that the water costs for potable water is about $5,600 a day. I think $5,500 a day when we're at full rates. We've done some modeling at the sewer district for us doing minimal work of putting in a situation of we would put in the pipe, we would put in the pump station. It got those numbers down to about 25 cents per thousand from $8.80 a thousand. So it's a tremendous increase in operating costs. Now, when I mentioned that to the CMC guy, that's a water bill of about $168,000 a month, I think, at our full rate. Well, to them, $1 billion, $168,000 isn't that much. I hope we can turn that. The county council is fully behind trying to get that done. I know both the water and sewer districts are fully behind trying to get that done, and that would be a big win for Berkeley County, Chesapeake Bay.
Maybe if I put a plug in your ear, maybe it'll help a little bit.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Yes, sir.
I just wondered, you said you saw 2.1 billion gallons in last year. What's the breakdown surface versus subsurface in that? The river versus the springs and rivers?
Jim?
We take about 70% from the river.
Yeah.
Hey Gary, let me just say too, on the regulatory constraints that you mentioned, I understand there's a consent decree, I'm not talking about that, but moving forward, now that the Chevron doctrine has been abrogated,
Yes.
let's make sure that, we have a constant line of communication, because if EPA's putting regulations on the Eastern Panhandle, and it's gonna affect rates for our residents, we as the state delegation, we've got a keen interest in that, and I've got no problem, knocking down an EPA regulation under a 10th Amendment violation and forcing them to prove it in court.
I have high hopes that the Chevron case and the Chevron process, I'm hoping they can roll out sort of the regulatory issues that we've had.
Great, thank you so much,
Yeah.
Jim, for being here. As you can see, the taxing of our infrastructure has grown just like, the county has in its own realm when it comes to public safety, public service, and all that. Just real quick, touching on the Chesapeake Bay watershed, and I've said this many times, we have a coal severance fund that comes from the state of West Virginia to Berkeley County, because Berkeley County does not produce coal. So we get a portion of the exporting of the coal, and we get some money for that. Since we have made our wastewater treatment cleaner and better for the Chesapeake Bay, I don't see why our federal delegation that we have sent to Charleston cannot get us some reprieve back here to help us with some of these issues that we have. That's just my own 2 cents on that. I mean, we've cleaned up the bay how much, by doing what we've done, so we deserve I think we deserve a little bit of restitution back to it. But I think that's you guys, and more powers to be down in Washington. But that's just my little tidbit of my brain, so. Again, thanks everybody for being here. We're gonna wrap it up, and Delegate Company's not here right now, but if anybody's interested as an elected official after the session or before the session, I'll be more than happy to leave a space on my agenda to come in and talk at any time. So, or meet up at any time that we can. So I'll leave that to that. Other commissions, I hope so too.
When the commissioners from Morgan and Jefferson County see you before you leave, I have another matter I want to talk to you, and I don't want to bore the whole group.
Take a motion to adjourn, Mr. Barnhart, or recess? Berkeley County is in recess.
If there's no chance for anybody from Jefferson County, we're